Operational production studio? Then Nationwide 90 FM has got you covered. We have flexible options to meet your recording needs any day of the week. Monday to Fridays, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays available upon request. Bookings must be made in advance. Call us today at 630-1210. Let us help you reach your production desires.
Starting a renovation project? Start right. Start here at H&L Rapid True Value for all your essentials at our 10 stores island-wide. The time by H&L Rapid True Value is
nationwide time, 5 o'clock.
Crisp and refreshing. Room temperature or chilled. A pure water would drink. The temperature by Pure Water is...
It's 29 degrees Celsius in capital city Kingston, 25 out west in Montego Bay.
From the Nationwide News Network, comprehensive, incisive, tough. This is Nationwide at 5.
Good afternoon, I'm Ricardo Brooks.
And I'm Nora Gay Banter.
In Nationwide News at this hour, Andrew Holness and Mark Golding would be locked in a tight race if Jamaicans could directly vote for Prime Minister today.
That's according to the latest Nationwide Blue Dot polls powered by Total Tools.
The polls also show that Senator Damian Crawford is considered the best performing spokesman in Mark Golding's shadow cabinet.
The industry minister says there's been a noticeable decline in food prices following a spike accompanying the passage of Hurricane Beryl.
But opposition Senator Peter Bunting says data from several sources suggests the economy has stalled and is heading to a recession.
I think there's a fairly strong chance that the second half of this year, the economy will be in recession.
In news from the rest of the world, marked police vehicle used in businessman's abduction in Trinidad and Tobago.
Death toll from Hurricane Helen rises as the storm flattened homes in Florida.
In headline sports, Manchester City will seek to return to winning ways when they travel to Newcastle in the English Premier League.
And later in our broadcast, in the cover story at 5:35,
the Nationwide Blue Dot polls, powered by Total Tools. Total Tools, they almost always have it.
In this evening's Nationwide at 5 special, the final Blue Dot 2024 poll results show which party is ahead and what does it mean as the country enters what's expected to be an election year. The Chief Insights Officer at Blue Dot, Janae Stevens-Taylor, is here with all the data. We'll also have a rotating cast of political analysts to tell us what the numbers mean.
And at 8, it's the A-Team with Dennis Brooks.
All these and more as we take you home on air on your mobile, Nationwide 90 FM, nationwideradiojm.com, and on the Nationwide app, available on the Google Play and the App Store. This Friday afternoon, it's Friday, September 27, 2024.
News at 5 is brought to you by Fostrich Company Limited, fostering rich customer service.
Now the details.
The Nationwide Blue Dot polls, powered by Total Tools. Total Tools, they almost always have it.
Andrew Holness and Mark Golding would be locked in a very close contest if Jamaicans could directly vote for Prime Minister today. That's a key finding out of the latest Nationwide Blue Dot polls powered by Total Tools. The poll shows that PNP President Mark Golding has significantly narrowed the gap in the minds of the electorate when the hypothetical vote for the country's chief executive is considered. Ricardo Brooks reports.
A year ago in September 2023, Andrew Holness was the clear frontrunner for Jamaicans when they were asked who would get their vote if they could directly elect the Prime Minister. Back then, Holness led a group of 7 prominent politicians by double digits. He was almost 15 percentage points ahead of Golding. Mark Golding placed a distant 4th on that list. Only 12% of respondents gave the PNP president their vote. 26.8% opted for Holness. But oh, what a difference a year makes. In a direct hypothetical matchup between Holness and Golding for Prime Minister, 52.4% of respondents say they would vote for the incumbent Prime Minister. 47.6% say Mark Golding would receive their direct vote. That's roughly a 5 percentage point difference. But it must be noted that these new results indicate the PNP president has improved his standing on the hypothetical question by 35 percentage points over the last 12 months. That's a big movement in a poll with a margin of error of plus or minus 3%. Younger voters aged 18 to 24 years are partly powering Holness's lead on the hypothetical question, with 56% of that demographic saying they would vote directly for him. 55% of voters 25 to 34 years old would also give Holness the nod, and nearly 58% of voters 35 to 44 say Holness would be their choice for Prime Minister. But most middle-aged voters say they would vote directly for Golding. 56% of voters aged 45 to 54 years old would give him their vote, so too would 54% of voters 55 to 64 years old. There's a close divide among voters over 65 years old, with 50% choosing Golding and 49% choosing Holness. When affiliation is considered, unaffiliated voters break in favor of Holness, preferring the Prime Minister 58% to 41% for Mark Golding. 91% of PNP supporters say they would go with Golding, while 84% of Labourites say Holness would get the green light. As it stands now, Section 70 of Jamaica's Constitution says the Governor-General shall appoint as Prime Minister the member of the House of Representatives who, in his judgment, is best able to command the confidence of a majority of its members. By convention, that person has been the leader of the majority party. The nationwide Blue Dot polls powered by Total Tools were conducted between September 6th and 19th. It sampled 1,246 respondents.
The nationwide Blue Dot polls, powered by Total Tools. Total Tools, they almost always have it.
Ricardo Brooks for Nationwide News.
Senator Damian Crawford has been identified as the best performing opposition spokesperson in Mark Golding's shadow cabinet. He's followed closely by the PNP president. That's according to the latest nationwide Blue Dot polls powered by Total Tools. Siobhan Campbell has the details.
Senator Crawford was chosen by 15% of respondents, while Golding received the nod from 14%. Crawford shadows the education portfolio. A deep dive reveals an almost even split when the question of best spokesman was put to PNP supporters. While 22% of supporters chose the party leader, Crawford received support from 20% of comrades. It was a similarly close divide in the minds of unaffiliated voters, with 13.7% choosing Crawford and 13.3% choosing Golding. 13% of Labourites chose Crawford as the best performing spokesman, while 7% chose Golding. Opposition spokesman on finance Julian Robinson rounds out the top 3 best performing spokesmen, gaining nearly 9% overall support. The PNP's firebrand General Secretary Dayton Campbell takes the number 4 spot, winning 4% overall support. Campbell shadows agriculture. Newcomer Deborah Hickling rounds out the top 5, she shadows culture. When the question of the worst performing spokesman was put to the respondents, Mark Golding topped the list with nearly 14.7% naming him. Interestingly, the spokesman on Labour and Sport, Wavell Hines, was ranked as the second worst performing PNP spokesman, with 10% choosing him. Dr. Dayton Campbell is third on the list of worst performers, with 7% choosing him. Siobhan Campbell for Nationwide News.
In other news now, the Industry Minister, Senator Aubin Hill, says there's been a noticeable decline in food prices following a spike accompanying the passage of Hurricane Beryl. In his recent address to the Senate, the minister notes that several key items have now shown a downward price trend.
The Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce issued an order to support fair sale of goods protect Jamaican citizens from unwarranted price increases of in-demand items after the passage of Hurricane Beryl, which happened on July 3rd this year. Since then, the Consumer Affairs Commission has been active in the field, gathering information to ensure that there is fair pricing. President, the Consumer Affairs Commission has reported that between August and September 2024, that there was a noticeable easing of price increases compared to the sharp spikes seen in the previous months.
The storm had significantly impacted Jamaica's agricultural sector, driving up prices and sparking consumer complaints of price gouging by retailers. Minister Hill sought to assure the country that his ministry has been closely monitoring the markets. Despite public concerns, checks by the Consumer Affairs Commission, the CAC, found no evidence of retailers unfairly hiking their margins. In his breakdown of price movements, Minister Hill highlighted specific goods that are seeing price relief, reinforcing that the government's efforts to stabilize the markets are working.
Of the 53 local and imported agricultural products surveyed, in other words, a good range of products were surveyed, 16 items, 30% of that 53 recorded price declines ranging from 1% to 11%, indicating some stabilization in market conditions. So while we hear about price rises, we tend not to hear a lot about the reduction in prices. So I'd like to report that here that some prices have actually gone down. 3 agricultural items, that 6%, remained relatively constant. 34 product items, that 64%, still experienced increases, but were less severe, ranging from 1% to as high as I said before, 62% for pepper.
Senator Albin Hill, the Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce.
Meanwhile, the industry minister is urging cement importers to utilize their quotas to ease the current shortage in the market. The minister addressed the shortfall of the critical building material, which he says arose due to scheduled maintenance at the country's main distributor, Carib Cement.
President, Jamaica currently has a booming economy, and this has led to increased construction activity such as infrastructure projects, housing, and commercial developments, driving up demand for cement. I realize that just before Beryl arrived, the cement company was going on its annual furlough to fix its plant and had imported an additional 25,000 tons. For the normal market, Beryl just ate that up quite quickly. Cement is one of the factors of production that many economists use as a key indicator of economic performance.
Carib Cement is Jamaica's sole cement manufacturer. Minister Hill says there's been an 8% monthly decline in the product, falling well below domestic demand. He says he's been given assurances by the manufacturer that it will return to full production soon. However, the industry minister says several importers who've complained about local shortages have failed to utilize the quotas they've been provided by the government to bring in cement.
We give other importers who are not producers of cement import quotas. And what I've found, Mr. President, just even on my way here, I was checking because I keep checking the market. Importers who were given quotas did not use up their quotas. And so while you hear of a shortage in the market and some people are calling for the government to give more quotas and so on, we have the resources in the ministry, and we check, and I'm making it clear to importers, and this is coming from Parliament, that when you come back to me, as you always do, you have to because we have to give it, and we always check. We're not going to be able to extend or give you additional quotas if you have substantial unused quotas for months. That was not done.
Senator Albin Hill, Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce. He was speaking in the Senate on Friday.
Opposition Senator Peter Bunting took issue with Senator Hill's characterization of the economy as booming. Addressing the Senate on Friday, Mr. Bunting says data from several sources suggests the economy has stalled and is heading into a recession.
The preliminary estimate for growth in the quarter ending June 2024 is 0.1%, less than 1%, 1/10 of 1%. And we know that these figures are often revised downward. Emphasis to say this did not include the impact of Beryl, because this would have been up to June 30th. Since that quarter, Bank of Jamaica has forecast that there will be negative growth in this quarter, ending September. they have predicted there will be negative growth, a decline in the economy. And I think there's a fairly strong chance that the second half of this year, the economy will be in recession.
Senator Bunting also notes that foreign direct investment, while up, is still below what it was, or rather what was achieved under the People's National Party.
Had increased by 35%. On the face of it, that sounds like a very strong increase, from 319 million to 431 million. So I myself thinking about this and saying, but this seems much lower than the figures we're accustomed to hearing. So I went to the World Bank website and I looked, for example, what did they show for Jamaica a few years ago. So for example, if we go to 2015, which was the last year that the PNP was in government, the figure was 925 million. FDI, they're less than half of what they inherited, but celebrating that at least 2023, though anemic, was better than 2022.
Peter Bunting, leader of opposition business in the Senate. You're listening to the news on Nationwide at 5. We'll have more after these.
Value Drug Pharmacy offers curbside pickup and delivery of your branded and generic drugs. WhatsApp your prescription to 876-881-6695. The time by Value Drug Pharmacy is...
It's 15 minutes after 5.
Rent-to-Kill Initial offers air purification solutions with triple filtration and unique auto-sensing capabilities that neutralizes malodor and replaces it with clean air. Call Rent-to-Kill Initial at 926-4236 for more details.
The temperature by Rent-to-Kill is
29 degrees Celsius in capital city Kingston, 24 out west in Montego Bay.
Yes, Kemlani Mart is making deals.
Really? Deals like what?
On scratch, dented, new furniture and appliances.
Oh, that's great.
And that's not all. Kemlani Mart has tiles, toilets, doors at crazy low prices.
So I can make a deal on a sofa set?
Of course, and dining room sets, outdoor furniture, ACs and more. No reasonable offer will be refused.
Only at Kemlani Mart, Manor Center and 77 King Street.
I love this place, you see.
Former staff of Jamaica Mutual Life and Jamaica Mutual Properties, for beneficiaries of the pension schemes or their next of kin or beneficiaries of their estate, are invited to contact Guardian Life at 12 Trafalgar Road, Kingston 10, or 876-927-4105, extension 2794, or GLL Pensions at myguardiangroup.com to make arrangements to claim their pension and or any other benefits payable.
Continuing the news, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the government is developing a $5 billion program to improve informal communities. Holness says the funds will be allocated over the next 3 years. He was speaking at the contract signing and groundbreaking ceremony for the Spicy Grove Infrastructure Works project in Arokabessa, St. Mary on Wednesday. Prime Minister Holness says the program is designed to provide communities like Spicy Grove with roads, water, and other infrastructure as needed. It will also facilitate access to land titles. Prime Minister Holness says 70 lots in the community will be surveyed and titled. In 2019, the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation declared Spicy Grove Community a Special Improvements Infrastructure Area under the Local Improvements Community Amenities Act. The declaration was due to the informal land occupation by approximately 65 households and inadequate roadways and water supply. The Spicy Grove development will take up to 6 months. Southland Construction Limited is contracted to carry out the works at a projected cost of $56.9 million.
In the courts, confessed fraudster and former wealth advisor at Stocks and Securities Limited, SSL, Jeanan Panton, is set to return to court on December 4 for a plea and case management hearing. Panton was remanded in custody when she appeared before the Supreme Court last Friday, September 20. Before that, her last court appearance was May 27. At that time, Panton's attorney, Sylvester Hemmings, highlighted several issues he was having with the quality and accessibility of documents provided by the Crown. This subsequently led to a directive by Chief Justice Brian Sykes outlining specific guidelines on how discovery must be conducted going forward. When the matter came up last Friday, the Crown gave its commitment to comply with the practice direction for disclosure issued by the Chief Justice. The court was also informed that the Crown and defense lawyers will be meeting on October 15 for general matters. Panton is the sole accused in the multi-billion-dollar fraud investigation arising from SSL. She's facing over 20 charges to include forgery, larceny as a servant, and engaging in a transaction involving criminal property. The former SSL wealth advisor is accused of defrauding over 40 people, including Usain Bolt, who had investments at the firm.
World in a Minute is brought to you by ABC Electrical Sales. We make things as easy as ABC. Hose assembly and supply, equipping Jamaica for success.
And Charles O'Connor Consulting Network, COCN, driven by international accounting standards, modern technology, and integrity.
The World in a Minute.
The police in Trinidad and Tobago are investigating reports that a marked service vehicle was used in the abduction of a used car dealer in Chaguanas on Wednesday. It's reported that the businessman was abducted by individuals dressed in tactical police gear and operating a marked service vehicle. It was reported that sometime after 9 p.m. on Wednesday, the men dressed as police officers stopped the vehicle transporting the 32-year-old used car dealer who was traveling with 3 other occupants. The would-be police officers reportedly left the scene with the businessman, who has not been named. In a statement on Friday, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service said it has launched a comprehensive investigation into the matter and is actively pursuing all leads into the incident.
In the United States, at least 20 people have been killed since Storm Helene made landfall in Florida Thursday night. This includes a first responder who Georgia Governor Brian Kemp says died trying to save others. Helene is one of the biggest storms to ever hit the Gulf Coast. It has barreled across Georgia towards Tennessee and the Carolinas after devastating Florida with fierce winds and flash flooding. Originally a Category 4 hurricane, Helene was downgraded to a tropical storm on Friday and then a tropical depression. Streets are underwater in parts of Georgia where the National Weather Service has issued a flash flood warnings and warned more than 1 million people are at risk. In Florida, cleanup operations are underway. One Cedar Key resident told the BBC that his home miraculously survived, while others are missing or flattened entirely.
World in a Minute was brought to you by ABC Electrical Sales. We make things as easy as ABC. Hose assembly and supply, equipping Jamaica for success.
And Charles O'Connor Consulting Network, COCN, driven by international accounting standards, modern technology, and integrity.
Recapping the top stories making nationwide news at this hour, Andrew Holness and Mark Golding would be locked in a tight race if Jamaicans could directly vote for Prime Minister today.
That's according to the latest nationwide Blue Dot polls powered by Total Tools.
The polls also show that Senator Damian Crawford is considered the best performing spokesman in Mark Golding's shadow cabinet.
The industry minister says there has been a noticeable decline in food prices following a spike accompanying the passage of Hurricane Beryl.
I'm Ricardo Brooks.
And I'm Nora Gay Banton.
You can find the news on our website at nationwideradiojm.com and on the Nationwide app, available on the Google Play and the App Store. News next at 9 in the morning tomorrow.
News at 5 was brought to you by Fosrich Company Limited, fostering rich customer service.
Now delivers in Kingston and St. Andrew with Quick Cart. Get your favorite juicy patties, breakfast, lunch, and more delivered right to your door. Visit quickcartonline.com or download the Quick Cart app to place your order. Juicy patties and Quick Cart, delivering serious Jamaican food.
Motorists, as Minister of Justice, I appeal to you, obey the road code. Pay your ticket on time and only go to court if the ticket is being contested. Close to 80% of matters coming to the parish courts are for traffic breaches. Let's work together to make our roads safe and ease the burden on our courts.
When I grow up, I'm going to be a famous gamer with viral videos all over the internet. I'm going to be rich. Good thing I'll already know how to take care of my money since Mommy got me this Sure Start account.
Open a CIBC Caribbean Sure Start account for your kids and give them a head start on financial smarts with a $1,200 sign-up bonus from us. We believe in their dreams as much as you do, so let's get them going together. Start young, start strong with Sure Start from CIBC.
Attention motorists, it's time to switch to the T-Tag on Highway 2000 East West. Vehicles using the automated T-Tag lane are processed in seconds, so you can pass through the toll plazas far quicker. The T-Tag makes it quicker, more cost efficient, and safer for our customers. So switch to the T-Tag today and experience the convenience. T-Tag packages are discounted to only $1,500, including a $500 toll credit from now until September 30.
Good afternoon. With your sports report, I am Alex Raby. We start with some football as defending champions Cavalier play away to 6th place Waterhouse in the Ray & Neville Jamaica Premier League on Sunday. Cavalier lead the lead with 4 points after 2 starts. In other fixtures, Harbourview host Malines United, Via United play Humble Lion, and Onyx Gardens host Racing United. Newcastle hosts unbeaten English Premier League champions Manchester City at St James Park tomorrow morning at 7:30. The Magpies' last 2 home leagues meeting with Pep Guardiola's side have seen 11 goals shared between the two. However, despite sitting in 6th place, the Magpies have struggled to hit the heights they have shown under Eddie Howe so far this season. The Magpies have looked weak defensively and without a clear plan on the ball, and have mainly rallied on individual moments of quality to win games, which Howe has admitted is unsustainable. Meanwhile, City are unbeaten in the league this term away after narrowly avoiding defeat to Arsenal last week. In other fixtures, Arsenal host Leicester City, Brentford play West Ham, Chelsea are at home to Brighton, Everton take on Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest welcome Fulham, and Wolves tussle with Liverpool. In Sunday's games, Ipswich Town play Aston Villa and Manchester United play Tottenham. Now to cricket, as England showed their firepower with bat and ball as they levelled the one-day international series with a 186-run thrashing of Australia in a rain-shortened match at Lord's today. Standing captain Harry Brook scored a magnificent 87 from 58 balls, while Ben Duckett also made a half-century before Liam Livingstone's blistering unbeaten 62 from 27 balls took the home side to 312 for 5 from 39 overs. Livingstone hit 7 sixes, with 4 of them coming as he took 28 off the last over of the innings from Mitchell Starc. That late onslaught gave Livingstone a 25-ball 50, the fastest in an ODI at Lord's, while England's 12 maximums is a new record in an ODI at the home of cricket. Australia made a fast start in their chase, but 3 wickets in 4 overs, including both openers, halted the momentum and England seized control. The Tories crumbled from 6-8 without loss to 126 all-out in 24.4 overs, with Matthew Potts excellent in taking 4 for 38. Now to athletics, as Paris Olympic champion Julian Alfred says she was inspired by Usain Bolt to take up track and field. After winning 8 Olympic gold medals and 11 World Championship gold, Bolt hung up his running shoes in 2017. 23-year-old Alfred, who became St. Lucia's first Olympic medalist when she won gold in the 100 meters and silver in the 200 in Paris in August. Alfred is on a 4-day visit to her native island St. Lucia, which is set to end with a grand concert at the Darren Sammy Stadium today. After watching Bolt compete on the world stage, Alfred moved to Jamaica as a 14-year-old, where she attended St. Catherine High, the alma mater of Prime Minister Andrew Holness. She later moved on to college in the United States. Alfred encouraged the student at her alma mater, Caesarean Primary School, to follow their dream.
When I was in primary school, I had a dream of being just like Usain Bolt. Even though it was so far-fetched, At the time, because I had no clue I would even achieve any of what he has. But I've made the sacrifices. I've moved away from my family at the age of 14. Just like most of you here, because I knew what I had to do in order to achieve my goals. I knew I had to make the sacrifice to just leave my family behind and go into a place where I felt would have been suited for what I wanted. There are so many times that I've cried, throwing the towel. I just wanted to be with my family and go back to life before track. But no, I kept going. So to all of you standing in front of me, in a field full of dreamers, my advice to you today would be to go after your dreams. No dream is too big or too small.
Julian Alfred, I'm Alric Swiby, and that.
Since 2016, 156,000 more Jamaicans are working. This is more than any other time in our history. Your government is caring for you.
The time brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister is
5:30.
Calling all fishermen in Jamaica. We are in the hurricane season. Weather changes are more frequent and you need your daily marine weather forecast to keep you informed of these changes. Hurry and register now with the Jamaica Fishermen Cooperative Union Limited. They will see that you get your daily marine report on time. Visit them at 44 Beechwood Avenue or call 876-968-0411. Don't delay.
On Sunday, August 11, in the quiet community of Cherry Tree Lane in Clarendon, our entire nation was shaken by a brutal act of violence.
Gangsters mercilessly took the lives of 8 innocent Jamaicans, including a 7-year-old boy.
These criminals will strike again, destroying more families and more communities, unless we stand together to stop them.
If you have any information that can help bring these killers to justice, please share it with the security forces.
The government has established a reward fund of $25 million for information leading to the arrest and charge of the perpetrators who committed this heinous act.
The facilitators who supply them with the arms, intelligence, and the transportation.
And those who harbor and protect these criminals after the crime.
If you know something, say something.
Call Crime Stop at 311, MOCA at 888-6622-847, the NIB at 811, or JDF at 837-8888.
Together,
we
will
defeat
the gangs
and develop a culture of peace in our country.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Imagine opening a bank account without ever leaving your home. Well, at CIBC Caribbean, we've changed the game. Open a new CIBC savings or checking account completely online using your computer or phone, anywhere, anytime. No need to visit the bank, no waiting in line. Just apply, verify, and sign your documents, all online. It's secure, seamless, and 100% digital. Open your new CIBC account by applying online today.
This is a public service announcement from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. The Ministry of Health and Wellness wishes to advise awardees of the Dr. Barrington Waite Memorial Scholarship Program that the deadline to complete their bonding agreement has been extended to Friday, October 18, 2024. Awardees who face challenges with meeting the requirements of their bonding agreement are encouraged to call the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service at 876-922-8600 or visit the office at 30 National Hero Circle, Kingston 4. They can also send an email to collet.mccausland@mof.gov.jm. That was a public service announcement from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Not a mercy. This one is very classic, dedicated to all the schoolers who are taking it.
If you've ever struggled to pass an exam, then you'll know that students today are under great pressure to get good grades and secure qualification needed to move on to higher education. The problem is that too many students are struggling alone and could really benefit from connecting with hardworking teachers and other bright students in other parts of the country and the region. Join me, Dennis Brooks, this and every Friday evening from 8 to 9, with a repeat on Saturday morning from 8 to 9. For the A-Team, a study group on radio, my team of teachers, students, and experts will break down the syllabus, giving you information, tips, and past paper questions that will help you get top grades in your upcoming exams. Follow us on Facebook Live and on Twitter and be a part of the community. It's the A-Team, Fridays at 8 p.m. with a repeat at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. It's your free extra class on radio and social media. And it's right here on Nationwide 90 FM, the revolution in media.
Hi there. Here's some good news for these trying times. Quote, "By God's word, I can see where I'm going. They throw a beam of light on my dark path." Unquote. Psalm 119, verse 105. Listen for God's word weekdays at 5:45 a.m. and 12:55 p.m. through
Oasis. Stop by for a refreshing drink and share a God perspective for the day.
Oasis. Weekdays 5:45 a.m. and 12:55 p.m. right here on Nationwide, a revolution in media.
The rebroadcast of the Oasis can be heard weekdays at 5:45 a.m.
Good afternoon, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us here, Nationwide at 5. It's a special edition of Nationwide at 5. This is the afternoon when we will make the revelations as to the final edition of the Nationwide Blue Dot polls powered by Total Tools. We'll tell you the party standings. Yes, in this edition. I am Cliff Hughes.
And I'm Ricardo Brooks. Good afternoon, Cliff.
Good afternoon, Ricardo. And looking forward to the next couple of hours.
Should be interesting stuff.
Yes. This edition of the Blue Dot polls is of particular interest to the country because we are heading into a general election year now. It has been a period, a year of serious political activities, several developments on the local political scene, and they're all building to a set of dynamics now which will determine, yes, the tone, tenor, and outcome of the next general elections.
And I dare say this is about the time when people start to plug in, start to pay attention to the politics and to the choice that they will have to make constitutionally due by September of 2025. So exactly a year from now.
Exactly. So how are we going to do it this afternoon? Well, we're going to begin with the people at Blue Dots, the pollsters, the data scientists, yes? They are the ones who do the polls, do the actual field work and the preparatory work. And we have in our studios Chief Consumer Insights Officer at Blue Dots, Janae Stevens-Taylor. Good afternoon again, Janae.
Good afternoon, Cliff. Good afternoon, Ricardo. And good afternoon to all of your listeners. It is a pleasure to be back with you this afternoon.
The last time we were here was
February.
Right. That's what, 6-7 months ago.
About 6 months just before the local government elections.
Right.
Yeah.
We also have on the line Chief Executive Officer at Blue Dots, Lauren Peart. Good afternoon, Lauren.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Cliff. Hi, Cliff. Hi, everyone. Hi to the viewers as well.
Good. So, let us get the basics out of the way. The date you were in the field, your sample size, your margin of error, the quality controls. Because people want to know, I get it, Ricardo gets it every day. So how me never get a pollster asking me yet? Yeah? One lady said to me on YouTube this week, I'm 62 years old and I've never been polled in my life. Yes? And how can 1,246 people determine how 3 million Jamaicans feel?
And you talk to too much Labourite, or you talk to too much PMP,
yes,
or you talk to too much women, or you talk to too much young people.
And the polls confuse me. That is another one.
Yes.
Just because the partisans, listen for a particular result, and they said, yes, they get another result. I said, Jesus Christ. You know? So all of those are going to go through. Lauren, the date you went into the field.
So I'll ask Jenny to go over that technical piece. Jenny?
Sure. So we were in the field from September 10th to the 19th. And during that time, we would have spoken to 1,246 Jamaicans, which yields a margin of error of 3%. All right, so let's break down what margin of error means. The margin of error means that if we had an opportunity to talk to all voting aged Jamaicans, the percentage scores that we would get from those questions would be either 3% more than what we are reporting or 3% less than what we're reporting. So what we call plus or minus 3% of the scores that we are reporting in these poll results that you've been hearing all week.
Mm-hmm.
That also means that when we see a difference between a score for a party versus their opponent, or a score for the Prime Minister versus the opposition leader, if it is 3% or less, it's a dead heat. All right? It is not what we call in the technical world a statistically significant difference. That means if you went out there and we did this and we talked to everybody, there's a real possibility it could go either way. So when we do polls, we try to minimize that margin of error number as much as possible. The more people you talk to, the lower your margin of error tends to be. Mm-hmm. Another critical component for the margin of error to be minimized is the composition of the sample. That's where we're talking about how many people from each constituency we talk to, how many males, how many females, how many people 18 to 24. And for that, we are guided by two national authorities. Firstly, the Statistical Institute of Jamaica. So if Statin has determined that, let's say, for example, 11% of the population is aged 18 to 24. So they are the youngest people in the population who are eligible to vote. Then in our sample, 11% of the people are also between 18 and 24. So for all of those variables, parish of residence, age, and gender, we are guided by what Statin has released is the population distribution. What percentage of each category exists in the population? And then we ensure that same proportion exists within our sample.
Pause for cause, Jenny.
Yes.
You've also given us data related to political preference.
Yes.
PMP supporters, JLP supporters, unaffiliated voters. The Labourites message me and they say, Gwe, on oversample the PMP them. The PMP them message me and them say, Gwe, on oversample the Labourite them. Talk to us about how that sample is done.
All right, so that part of the sample now comes down to the constituencies and the enumeration districts that make up these constituencies. And there are on record a specified number of registered voters in each enumeration district that's then scaled up to each constituency. We use that same information to determine the percentage of the registered voting public that lives in that particular constituency or that particular enumeration district. And that same proportion, that same percentage, let's say it's 3%, which a lot of them tend to be between 2 and 3%. 3% of the voting public lives in a particular constituency, then 3% of our sample also comes from that constituency. So we are guided by what is released by the national authorities in terms of the percentage distribution of the, not just the constituencies, but then within each constituency,
polling divisions,
the enumeration districts, right? That's the primary sampling unit that we use. So there is no...
but how do you know, that John Brown, in John's Hall, is a PNP supporter as against a JLP supporter?
We have no way of knowing that before approaching John Brown. But what you do to ensure that the interviewers, and we have a vast team out in the field, are not targeting particular homes of people who we know to be PNP supporters or know to be JLP supporters, is they're given what we call a sampling interval. So the sampling interval says you start at this basic school. That's your starting point. And you walk left or right, and you stop at every third house or every fifth house if it's a very densely populated area. If it's more sparse, we may say you stop at every other house.
So why I can't stay in my living room and just fill it out?
How
as a data collector, stay in my living room and just answer the questions myself and then submit it.
Understood. So we have a couple of things to prevent that from happening, or to detect it and weed it out if it does. Because I'm not going to say people don't try, let's be honest. But when they do, we can weed it out. And this is how. Every interview that is conducted on our survey platform, it registers the GPS location of that interview. So if you're sitting in your living room, it's going to pick up your house for every survey that you start. Of course, if you are registering multiple responses from the same location, big red flag. Right?
And hold on,
yes.
Your GPS, your GPS.
Yeah, what is that fancy
What is
thing?
that? Because a lot of people don't know what that's mean, but a lot of people listening don't know what is that GPS. Why is it such a crucial quality control?
All right, so GPS, it stands for Global Positioning Systems, and it is a satellite-based location technology that can detect where you are at any given point in time. So it is the basis that all our navigation platforms that we use across the world is developed on. So Google Maps, Waze,
well-developed technology.
Well-developed technology, and it can pick up exactly where you are because all of our data collection is done on smart devices.
So your devices have location settings essentially.
That is correct.
And you can track your interviewers, their location, where they are and where they're conducting the interview.
Right. So it allows us to ensure that they are out there going house to house doing what we've told them to do, but it also ensures that we can check that they're in the constituency that has been registered on the questionnaire. Because that is also important, right?
And
we have to make sure it represents the correct constituency.
And you have had instances, Laren, where you have been able to pick up. We have to go to the break. Let's go to the break and come back, because I gather you have had instances where you find that some people attempted to cheat.
That's correct.
After the break.
Clearing personal, non-commercial shipments at the port? Avoid the wait. Request a contactless clearance through your agent today. It's more efficient. It's secure. The time by the Jamaica Customs Agency is
5:46.
Upgrade your kitchen and bathroom to the next level with Unique Living. They're the ultimate destination for all your kitchen and bathroom needs, from luxurious shower systems to exquisite faucets, vanities, sinks, toilets, closets, and more. They have it all. Visit shop number 6, 30 Dunrobin Avenue, Kingston 10, or call them at 876-755-3661. Elevate your space with Unique Living, where quality meets expectations.
Does your bra ride up your back? Do your shoulders hurt from carrying the weight of your breasts? These are signs of an ill-fitting bra. When was the last time you were fitted by a bra fit specialist? The bra experts at LaBelle Femme will take care of you. Drop into the store at 53 Lady Musgrave Road, Tuesdays to Saturdays from 10 to 5, and you will see the difference. Or call 876-622-6091.
Don't miss Info Exchange's Business Cloud Forum, October 1 at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel. Global technology leaders, Nutanix, IBM, HPE Aruba, Zerto, and Exagrid will be here sharing insights and live demos. Discover how AI is reshaping industries and increasing efficiencies. Learn proven technologies to build operational resilience and protect your business from disruption. Register now at infoexchangeja.com. Info Exchange, smart technology, better business.
Yes, Kemlani Mart is making deals.
Really? Deals like what?
On scratch, dented, new furniture and appliances.
Oh, that's great.
And that's not all. Kemlani Mart has tiles, toilets, doors at crazy low prices.
So I can make a deal on a sofa set?
Of course, and and dining room sets, outdoor furniture, ACs, and more. No reasonable offer will be refused.
Only at Kemlani Mas, Manor Center and 77 King Street.
I love this place, you see.
Minutes going up to 6 o'clock on the brink of an election year. Which of the country's two major political parties is ahead? Yes, you will hear within the coming moments. Yes, which one is ahead? We have with us Jenny Stevens-Taylor, Chief Consumer Insights Officer at Blue Dot, as well as CEO of Blue Dot Insights, Laren Peart. So Laren, Jenny had told us about one of the quality controls you use of GPS. And you have had instances, haven't you, Blue Dot, where you catch people in the field attempting to cheat?
Yes.
Tell us how.
Unfortunately, in our industry, it's called cooking of data. Prior to the technology, you would have interviewers who go out with pen and paper and clipboards, and you'd really just never know where they are or what they're doing, But we've employed significant quality control measures. The GPS location is one. With consent, we audio record a snippet of the interviews. We also capture the background from the camera that's on the tablet. So, I'm unfortunate. I'm stuck in traffic. I was hoping to have been there so I could have brought it up on camera. Interview audits that we've done where we see our own interviewers in their living room collecting data and submitting it. And we've just had to weed out those bad interviews and weed out those responses. But we have a dedicated team for quality control that every single response is checked, right? They look at the responses, they listen to the audios, they look at the pictures, they look at the GPS, and anything that's off is flagged. AI is also used to flag those. And then as a final or another check, Janae and her team, when they're going through the data, if something is off, they will be able to spot it in the data analysis phase. And I think it's important to underscore this, Cliff, because, polling is, I keep saying this, it's 1% of our business. Our clients, our corporate clients, rely on Blue Dot to help them to make very critical decisions that they then make multi-million-dollar decisions off of the insights that we provide them. I would never, right, and we would never, ever, ever fabricate any data for the sake of politics and to suit anyone. It's just not worth it.
And it's important that you say that, Laren, because I get it every day since we started publishing these polls. Yeah, not this year, not last year. This is our 4th year.
Yes, it is.
And from day one, yes, you have the partisans who accuse, when the numbers, when the results, when the findings are not going according to their agenda. They accuse pollsters of all kinds of things, including fabricating the numbers. Yeah,
it's just not worth it for us to do that, Cliff. The data says what the data says, and people need to accept it. It captures the opinions of the masses at a moment in time, and we report it as is.
Yes,
and that's it.
Okay, hold the line now. So, Ricardo,
let's go to what the data says now, Janae, and let's start with that question we reported at the top of our 5 o'clock bulletin. This question, a very interesting question, of a hypothetical direct vote for Prime Minister. Some interesting movements Cliff and I were discussing before the 5 o'clock bulletin in terms of what the numbers now say compared to what it was in September 2023. Take us through that.
Sure. So one thing that I want people to understand before we dive into this question is in September 2023, we would have asked a broader question, right? Then we would have not just allowed persons to select between Holness and Golding. There were some other political personalities in the running for that as well. So it is less important to pay attention to the percentage scores and more important to pay attention to the ranking, right? So we know that last time, Golding was 4th in that ranking, and even persons within his own party would have outranked him.
Damien Crawford
and Lisa Hanna were ahead of him. Right? This this time, because we know that we're heading into an election year, and we know that both parties have signaled that they're heading into the next general elections with the current leaders in place.
Yes.
Right? So we've removed the others because they're not options,
Right.
and we've narrowed it down. So if you could vote directly for Prime Minister in a race between Mark Golding and Andrew Holness, who would you vote for? And there is only a narrow margin in favor of the Prime Minister. That is a significant feat for Golding. If you can recall, throughout these polls, over the years that I've been doing this show with you, Cliff, a lot of Jamaicans were, the numbers indicated that a lot of Jamaicans were very undecided about Golding.
Yes.
They did not have a decidedly positive nor negative take. They were very neutral, very indifferent. These results are suggesting that people are starting to make up their minds about who Mark Golding is as the leader of the opposition and as the person that will be leading the PNP into the next general election. And not only that, but that the perceptions that they're forming are similar to the ones that they hold for our current Prime Minister, Andrew Holness.
So the numbers, tell us the numbers again.
So the numbers, 52.4% of people overall, indicating that in that direct prime ministerial race, they would select the current Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, compared to 47.6% for Mark Golding.
That's just about 5%.
Just about 5%.
Just under.
But remember, we talked about that margin of error number, right? And the relative size of the difference between those. So really, there's only 2% outside of the margin of error. So when we say narrow margin, that's what we mean.
And then, so that means that perception, or positive perception, is breaking in favor of Mr. Golding. He's been on the road now for
3
more than a
years.
year. Absolutely. And it seems it's starting to pay off. People are starting to see him as a potential prime minister. Would that be fair to conclude?
The data is suggesting that, and what I also want people to be aware of as they interpret these questions is that, as Lauren mentioned, a poll is a snapshot of a point in time, and so the national context is important to bear in mind. What was prevailing at the time? Now, we have to remember that the PNP conference would have happened earlier in the month of September. And there they would have made some pretty significant pronouncements on their platform that would give people a basis to formulate an opinion about their leader. And we see some of that reflecting in these poll results.
And not only that, but over the last year has been a tough year for the government and Holness. Very difficult year politically. So
Agreed.
that would have been a factor as well.
And we saw early warning signs of that when we did these polls in February. That, you know, the government had some things to be concerned about. They had some things they needed to start paying attention to. Favorability was down, trust in the government was down, trust in Holness was down. We saw all of that happening in February. Some of it has rebounded, fortunately for them, as we hear in the results that you've been releasing all week.
Right.
But whatever they've been doing to sort of turn the tide in a more positive way, they need to keep those efforts sustained and even ramp them up, because previously they've been so far ahead that maintaining their efforts would have been sufficient. But now, with Golding gaining this kind of ground, they really will have to accelerate to widen the gap.
Here's what I'm interested in as well, Janae, the age demographic breakdown.
Sure.
Because it suggests here that Mr. Holness is holding his own among the younger right.
Yes.
But Mark Golding is doing very well with middle-aged voters.
Yes.
And perhaps this question I should ask you, Cliff. In terms of... No, I didn't say old, I said middle-aged. So it's not you that. But did the camera catch that he threatened me? But no, seriously. I wonder if the JLP should be concerned, because 18 to 24, 25 to 34, 35 to 44. If I were a betting man, I would say middle-aged voters are more reliable. And you can count on them to turn up.
In terms of turnout,
right,
yes.
than you can for a voter 18 to 24. Doesn't that spell warning signs for the JLP?
Well, we have noticed in the politics for the last 10, 15 years that the GLP is doing better among the younger voters. The most reliable PNP demographic groups, right, are over 55.
Correct.
45, 50, 55. The PNP has shown sustained strength in that older demographic group, while not so for the younger demographic. So it's one of the questions I want to put to Jenny, because I noticed there's something happening where the older demographic group, over 65, is now leaning JLP.
In fact,
so I wouldn't say that they're leaning JLP. We're seeing a more equitable split between the two. Whereas in previous polls, that 65, the seniors, they were decidedly in favor of the PNP and Golding.
And if I could just tell the listeners, Janae, 65 years or older, if they had to cast a direct vote for Prime Minister, listeners, 50.5% would choose Mark Golding, 49.5% would choose Andrew Holness.
So it's pretty much an even. If we take off those 0.5s and do our maths, that's 50-50, right?
Yes.
So that's what you're seeing coming out of the results. A more even split between the two parties amongst the eldest registered voters.
Right.
We have online, Cliff, public commentator Peter Espute.
We're going to take a break and then we come back with Ms. Udan.
The time brought to you by Guardian Life. Live secure, live easy is...
It's 6 o'clock.
We can light up your world with the rays of the sun, putting pure energy in the palm of your hand.
For over 20 years, Fosrich has been putting a world of energy in your hands. Now we bring you big savings with our line of solar energy products and LED lighting. Financing now available for all your home and commercial retrofit projects. Consult with our in-house staff or certified professional engineers for all your electrical needs. Fosrich Lifestyle. It's electric. Fosrich, your energy world.
Imagine opening a bank account without ever leaving your home. Well, at CIBC Caribbean, we've changed the game. Open a new CIBC savings or checking account completely online using your computer or phone, anywhere, anytime. No need to visit the bank, no waiting in line. Just apply, verify, and sign your documents, all online. It's secure, seamless, and 100% digital. Open your new CIBC account by applying online today.
With so much to do in one location, make Megamart your one-stop shop. Pick up your groceries and houseware needs, grab a bite and pay some bills, fill your prescriptions and see the beauty products in our pharmacy. All in one amazing location. My Megamart, the best value by far.
Good evening, good evening. You're listening to a special edition of Nationwide at 5. It's our results show. The nationwide Blue Dot polls powered by Total Tools. Yes, I want to say special thanks to our sponsors, the people at Total Tools. Yeah, all your needs for tools, go to Total Tools. Ricardo?
They almost always have it. Let's tell our listeners, Cliff, the lineup or guests later on in the program. We'll have with us Desmond Richard, senior journalist, former head of the Press Association of Jamaica. We have also Marlon Morgan, member of the JLP's Communication Task Force. Ronaldino McLean will join us, a university student studying political science and economics. We have Peter Espute, public commentator.
Jermaine Barrett, another public commentator, as well as Helene Davis-White and Dr. Nadine Spence, all coming up during the broadcast.
Yes.
Well, Peter is online. Good afternoon, Peter.
Hi, Cliff. Hi, listeners.
Or should I say Deacon?
Peter is fine.
Peter is fine.
It'll still be Deacon for me, though. Deacon Espute.
As you wish. No objection.
All right. All right, so Deacon Espute, I wanted to get your perspective, first of all, on this age breakdown. 18 to 24 years old, 25 to 34 years old seem to be breaking in favor of Holness. Those over 65 years virtually tied, but the middle-aged voters going heavily in favor of Mark Golding. From all you've seen of these two men, what do you make of these numbers?
It's very hard to say. I would have thought that the younger voters might have been more rebellious, you know. I thought the older voters were supposed to be much more JLP because of the Bustamante legacy with the union in his time.
No, Peter, that disappeared quite some time ago. The older voters, go to the PNP now.
That's interesting. Maybe that's the Michael Manley generation.
Yes. Yes.
It's hard to say, kids, with the ages. I really don't have an opinion on why the younger voters are breaking for the JLP. I don't.
Mm-hmm. I want to hear. Go ahead.
I could guess, but I don't feel to guess.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. The break in terms of the head-to-head matchup.
Yeah.
The hypothetical one. You lecture in statistics, right? Tell us what we need to be careful about that, because last year, as Janae told us, when we asked this question, it was a broader field. We had about 7 people, when we asked. And then it was Wholeness ahead, about 26.8%, as against 12.3% for Mark Golding. Mark Golding finished 4th in a field that included Lisa Hanna and Damon Crawford. And now in a head-to-head matchup, it's 52.4 for Wholeness, 47.6 for Golding. How would you read that?
Well, I think I made a similar comment on Monday when you called me. Since you have the Blue Dot people there, I want to know if they consider that to be a statistical dead heat. Because if you take the JLP number and if you less 3%, because it's plus or minus 3, right?
Yes.
So if you minus 3, and if you take the PNP result and plus 3, what do you get?
You get less 3 from the JLP, you're at 49.6, and plus 3 for the JLP, you're
plus
at
3 for
50.
the PNP,
For the
you're at
PNP,
50.
50.6.
Yeah.
So there's an overlap there.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my way of interpreting the data, I would consider that a statistical dead heat.
Mm-hmm.
Would the Blue Dot people agree?
We do agree. We do agree with that. Yes.
So, this is the thing when it's so close that, of course, you can say it leans towards the JLP because they got the higher median.
Mm-hmm.
But in actual fact, it's a statistical dead heat.
Right.
What I wanted, I know I'm going to have to give way to somebody else shortly. So if you don't mind, I just want to ask the Blue Dot people this. Of course, we always, there's an internal error in the poll, it's sampling error and that kind of thing, which you really can't measure until you compare your actual results, poll results, to an actual election. And we do have that in February, because you gave a prediction in February of this year as how the election will go. And then we actually had the poll, and the popular vote, of course, went to the PNP in the actual election. But in your poll, you had the JLP coming ahead. But was that within the margin of error?
Yes. So in the February polls, the margin was between the two parties was all just outside of the margin of error, so only 1% outside of the margin of error. Right. So in that instance, it was also considered a neck-and-neck race heading into those local government. Yes, there was a slight, very narrow advantage in favor of the JLP, but with the understanding that it's just 1% outside of the margin of error, it's well accepted that it could go either way.
Right, and of course it did go where the PNP won the popular vote. Mm-hmm. By a little bit. So I'm pointing out to you, I mean, I know you haven't got to this part of your poll result yet, so I don't want to call out the numbers because you haven't done this yet, or the party standing.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems to me that the data that you are going to tell everybody for the party standings has that same problem, that the margin of error it's a statistical dead heat, and therefore we really have to wait for the poll 6 months from now before we can make more incisive comments, you know.
That is so true, because as we have been saying, a poll is a snapshot at a particular moment. You know, I think you also made a point when you were last year, Peter, that we have to look at the trend.
Yes.
The trend is so crucially important. Yeah. All right. Stay with us, Peter. We're going to call you back a little later when we do the actual party standings.
Sure.
But thank you. But to our first question.
The first question,
for the first time,
just pull it up.
For each name or organization, Janae, you're with me? For each name or organization you recognize, do you have a positive, negative, or no opinion of that person or group? What were the results?
All right, so this is what we call the favorability question. All right, so let me just ensure it's as clear as possible for everyone viewing. So this is what we call the favorability question. It's measured on a scale, and people can indicate whether they have a positive or very positive take, or a negative or very negative take. And for ease of reporting, we combine very positive and positive, and you'll see an overall score there, and then we combine negative and very negative. So having explained that, let's look at what the numbers say. A very key takeaway here is that for the first time since the last general elections, both party leaders are polling more favorably than their party organizations. What does that mean? It means that the percentage positive ratings for the leaders is higher than the positive ratings for the parties themselves. That has always been the case for the JLP and Wholeness. Wholeness has always polled more favorably.
Not so for Mark Golding.
But that has not been the case for Mark Golding. The PNP has always polled, well, since we've been doing this show, the PNP has been polling more favorably than its leader. This is the first time that that is not the case. So again, it goes back to the point that I made when we looked at that direct prime ministerial question, where people are starting to make up their minds and to have a more decided take on who Mark Golding is. And in his case, there's an increase. Those neutral people are shifting more towards having a positive perception of him than having a negative perception of him.
So the more they get to know him, the more they're liking him.
That is what the numbers would suggest.
And just to give a little bit of the history here, the point about the party leader polling ahead of the party has been so traditionally for both major political parties, save and except when Golding became leader of the PNP. He didn't poll ahead of the party. So he's now back. He's now up, not back. He's now up to that mark in the political dynamics of the country, where he's polling ahead of the party. Therefore, he's not a drag anymore on the party. He's now pulling the party.
And that must be considered significant.
Frankly, it is a big achievement for Golding based on where he's coming from.
And let's remember, the General Secretary of the People's National Party had been banking on this. He kept on saying that the more they expose Mark Golding to the Jamaican people, is the more they would like him. And Jenny is saying to us now, the data is suggesting that that's actually paying off.
Yes.
Right. Another element that really solidifies that this is quite a feat for Golding is that for the first time, the positive ratings gap between Wholeness and Golding is in single digits.
All right. Let's hear the actual numbers, Janine.
So, okay, right. So let's do numbers. So 39% of Jamaicans have a positive perception of Prime Minister Andrew Holness, compared to only 28% that have a negative perception. So he has what we call a favorability gap of 11%, a positive favorability gap of 11%. Net favorability,
Okay.
yes.
Positive 11.
Positive 11, that is correct. When we look at opposition leader Mark Golding...
Before you go to Mr. Golding, that neutral number is surprising to me. 33%, is that it?
Yes, 33%.
After what, 8 years as Prime Minister? 33% are neutral on him? Does that mean they have no opinion?
That means their opinion is indifferent. it's neither positive nor negative. So they're not particularly impressed with his performance, his stance, his political persona, but they're not turned off by it either.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Then when we look at opposition leader Mark Golding, positivity ratings or favorability score of 30% and negative ratings amounting to 23%. So he has net favorability of 7%. All right. When we compare the favorability ratings of both leaders, Holness is still ahead, but only by 9%, which is the lowest that it's been since we've started these polls.
Isn't this the first time Golding is entering net
Favorability.
positive territory?
Correct.
And that tells you the movement he has had over the last 12 months.
Correct.
This would be good news for comrades because they will say
Marky G.
there's still time. And there's still time to catch up, to close that gap that remains. 46% have a neutral view of him.
Correct. So there's still a substantial share of the population that needs to be convinced. But of those that their efforts have yielded some amount of movement, that movement has been positive.
All right. After the break, on a scale of 0 to 10, with 0 being extremely poor and 10 being exceptional, how would you rate the performance of Golding after almost 4 years as opposition leader? After the break. Stay with us.
For all your scales and food processing equipment, call Advanced Scales and Equipment Limited at 876-968-9612-5. The time by Advanced Scales and Equipment Limited is
15 minutes after 6.
Need to send items locally? Now there's a better way. ZipMail, a safe, reliable, and affordable courier service island-wide. Delays are a thing of the past. Save time. ZipMail will send it in a flash. We offer door-to-door pickup and delivery by the next business day. You can track the progress of your item every step of the way. Choose ZipMail and let us deliver your next package or item now. Just zip it and forget it. A product of Jamaica Post.
We can light up your world with the rays of the sun, putting pure energy in the palm of your hand.
For over 20 years, Fosrich has been putting a world of energy in your hands. Now we bring you big savings with our line of solar energy products and LED lighting. Financing now available for all your home and commercial retrofit projects. Consult with our in-house staff or certified professional engineers for all your electrical needs. Fosrich Lifestyle. It's electric. Fosrich, your energy world.
You can have it all. Company events, birthday parties, or the wedding of your dreams. It's all possible at Grand Palladium Hotels and Resorts. We have magnificent event rooms and a dedicated team that will make your event the best experience that only Grand Palladium Hotels and Resorts can offer. Contact us at 876-619-0000 or call your favorite travel agency and ask about our promotion designed especially for you.
Time for a new look. And high time to get serious about protecting our home and investment.
It's time to choose BH Paints with over 60 years experience in quality paint finishes. Their products are superior and long-lasting.
Time to check them out.
Ask about BH Paints 100% Acrylic Ultima Plus paint and primer in one. Experience rich colors with advanced UV and mildew-resistant technologies, independently tested by experts. What are you waiting for? Visit a BH Paints Color Center today.
We can light up your world with the rays of the sun, putting pure energy in the palm of your hand.
For over 20 years, Fosrich has been putting a world of energy in your hands. Now we bring you big savings with our line of solar energy products and LED lighting. Financing now available for all your home and commercial retrofit projects. Consult with our in-house staff or certified professional engineers for all your electrical needs. Fosrich Lifestyle. It's electric. Fosrich, your energy world.
Here's to the early risers, and we are here all-nighters. The go the extra milers, and let's do it until it works, workers. People who are powerful because they power through day after day, challenge after challenge. You see, true power, it's not something you can buy or collect. It is something that starts on the inside, and you always know it when you see it. Sunshine Snack Peanuts, proud supporters of the powerful.
When I grow up, I'm going to be a famous gamer with viral videos all over the internet. I'm going to be rich. Good thing I'll already know how to take care of my money since Mommy got me this Sure Start account.
Open a CIBC Caribbean Sure Start account for your kids and give them a head start on financial smarts with a $1,200 sign-up bonus from us. We believe in their dreams as much as you do, so let's get them going together. Start young, start strong with Sure Start from CIBC.
19 minutes after 6, it's the results show of the nationwide Blue Dot polls, powered by Total Tools. Total Tools, they almost always have it.
I'm Ricardo Brooks.
And I'm Cliff Hughes.
And we're going to go now to question 2. Question 2. On a scale of 0 to 10, with 0 being extremely poor and 10 being exceptional, how would you rate the performance of Mark Golding after almost 4 years as the opposition leader?
Over to you, Chief Consumer Insights Officer, Janae Stevens-Taylor.
All right, so we have the largest share of Jamaicans rating Golding's performance as average. That means they've given him a score of between 4 and 6 on that scale that we would have just expressed. So 0 means extremely poor, 10 means exceptional, and 42%, a combined 42% of Jamaicans scored him between 4 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
We have
that's barely passing.
Barely passing.
Average.
For the rest of the country, they are fairly evenly split between rating his performance as poor, which would be a score between 0 and 3, and rating his performance as good, which is a score between 7 and 10. So for every Jamaican who rates him poor in terms of performance, there's another who's giving him a score that equals to a good rating between 7 and 10 on this scale.
So overall, the numbers, good, 29%.
Yes, and poor.
Average, 42%.
And then poor is at 30%.
30%.
Correct.
For the opposition leader.
How has that moved over time, Jay,
Yes.
in terms of Mr. Golding?
All right, so pay attention to the colors here for those of you who are tuning
YouTube.
in.
Yes.
You can
blue,
go on YouTube and see the visuals. Yes.
All right, so blue is good, right? So when we look at the numbers over time, just look at the growth in the blue bars, right?
Yes.
You're able to see
From
quite
2021.
clearly. From 2021, we were getting good at 15%. A year later, we climbed to 20%, which held firm into 2023. Just before the local government elections, it inched up again to 24%, giving a good rating of his performance. And now he's at 30%. Right, it's 29.5. So if we round it up, it's at 30% in September 2024, which is the highest it's been since he's assumed leadership.
So this is significant because in 6 months, he would have moved by 25%. From 24% to 30%. That's a 6 percentage point
6 percentage point increase.
Now, in terms of actual percentage move, that's 25% growth in
Correct.
6 months.
In 6 months. Yes.
That is massive.
That is significant, and it's underscored by the opposite movement for those who are viewing the red bars, right? So the poor ratings in 2021 were at 45%. It had even gone up a little bit to 51% in 2022 and 2023. That came down quite significantly in February 2024, just before the local government elections. We know there was quite a bit of campaigning leading up to that elections on the part of the opposition leader. And now it's down to 30% in September 2024. So his positive perception in terms of his performance is on the rise, and the negative perceptions or low scores are on the decline. There's still a significant portion of persons giving him an average rating, so they're in transition, right? They're shifting away from poor, and they're moving a little further up the scale, and I guess they will be looking over the next year to see how he continues to progress. And when we do these polls again in February, we will see where things land.
But I recall last year and the previous years, one of our talking points was that the opposition leader was underwater. He's no longer underwater.
The numbers would suggest
He's
that.
no longer drowning. He's swimming.
The wind is at his back, and if you're Mark Golding, you have to be happy with these numbers. They're heading in the right direction at the right time. The start of a year where you expect a general election in about 12, 11 months. I heard Peter Esprit say 6 months perhaps, and you're heading in the right direction. That's that. If I were Mark Golding, I'd be happy with these numbers. But if I could ask you, Janae, in terms of, I know you've always given us, for example, age demographics, in terms of what's powering Mr. Golding's positive movement. Do you have that?
Sure. So let's start first with age. And we see that trend that and this is why it's a trend, because it's holding across multiple questions, right? But we see that finding again where he has a stronger footing, and therefore he's receiving more positive ratings among what we would classify as middle-aged voters. So voters between the age of 45 to 54% rating his performance as good, 42%. Those between 55 and 64 years old, 40% of these voters rate his performance as good. So that's a substantial share of the population when you look at just pure demographic numbers, and that is where he seems to have the strongest footing. The younger voters are more critical. They're less likely to give him good ratings. So 18 to 24, only 26% rating his performance as good. 25 to 34, only 21% giving good ratings there. And then 35 to 44, only 24% rating his performance as good. And they have a substantially higher share relative to the overall sample of average ratings. So they still need a little bit more convincing. They're not saying you're terrible, but we still need to be convinced. They're not as enthusiastic as we see with the middle-aged voters. Looking interestingly again at the senior voter segment, they are not as bought in to his performance just yet. They are aligning with the young people in this instance. So 28% good compared to 35% poor. So this is one of those segments over the age of 45.
Yes, go ahead.
All right. Where the poor ratings outweigh the good.
Okay. All right, let's move on now to the next question. It's 26 minutes after 6 and we're running behind the clock. On a scale of 0 to 10, with 0 being extremely poor and 10 being exceptional, how would you rate the performance of Andrew Holness after 8 years as Prime Minister of Jamaica?
All right, so after those 8 years, Andrew Holness receives mixed evaluations. We have a 40% approval rating. That means 2 in every 5 Jamaicans approve of the job that Holness is doing as the sitting Prime Minister. And that also means that 3 in 5 Jamaicans either express disapproval or view his performance as average. So when we talk hard numbers, 32% of Jamaicans view his performance as average. And just a reminder, average means that he received a score between 4 and 6 on that scale of 0 to 10. Poor ratings amount to 28%. So we have 28% of persons giving him a score between 0 and 3.
And historically, after 8 years, given what we have had under his administration, he's proving quite resilient.
He is proving quite resilient. As a matter of fact, this 40%, so we have it here from 2021, And this 40% for September 2024
Mhm.
is a slight rebounding from what we saw in February. In February, it went down to 36%. As a matter of fact,
Who rated him as good?
Sorry, these are his positive ratings,
Yeah.
approval ratings.
Yeah,
So his
approval.
approval ratings were 36% in February 2024 and 32% a year ago in September 2023 when we
Yeah.
did that poll. So 40% is a rebounding for wholeness.
The fall off in February 24.
Correct.
And 23.
Correct. It has not quite gotten back to where we would have seen him in 2022 and 2021, when his approval ratings were 43%
Yes.
in those September editions of these polls.
Yeah.
But it is getting back to that level. Whether it will continue to do so over the next 12 months will certainly, that remains to be seen, and it will have an influence on what people do when they go to the poll.
Go ahead.
Do the age demographics hold for wholeness in terms of favorability?
All right, so looking.
Wait, no. Let me see that women one, because I'm very interested in this. Women. So, go ahead.
Right. So women were more confident in Holness's performance during his tenure as Prime Minister. We have 42% of women approving of his performance, 34% rating his performance as average, and only 24% disapproving of his performance. Now, while the difference in his approval between men and women is what we would refer to as not statistically significant, right? Because that difference is 3%, which is our margin of error.
Right.
But when we look at the disapproval ratings, we find the male voters to be more critical of Holness, and so they give him disapproval or poor ratings, 31% of males compared to 24% of females. So they're more critical of the Prime Minister.
And this is a trend we're picking up. The
Yes.
Prime Minister is benefiting from the female vote, the
He is.
female sentiments.
We've seen that in multiple polls, yes.
Hold, let me just take a time signal.
Drive the most exciting new vehicles in Jamaica. Schedule your 2024 Ford Ranger pickup or Ford Everest 7-seater SUV test drive now. Call or visit KIG today.
The time by KIG is...
It's 6:30.
For all your electrical needs, visit ABC Electrical Sales. They stock a wide variety of electrical supplies including plugs, switches, panel boards and conduits, plus energy-saving fixtures. ABC Electrical Sales stocks brands like GE, Siemens, Philips, Cutler Hammer, and Allen Bradley. They also offer free island-wide delivery just to suit your needs. Visit them at Shop 8, Hagley Park Plaza, Kingston 10, or call 876-754-3714-5 or 876-754-3825-8. ABC Electrical Sales, for a better choice in the electrical business.
It's 6:31. You're listening to Nationwide at 5, a special edition of Nationwide at 5, the NNN Blue Dot Polls results show. I'm Ricardo.
Powered by Total Tools. They almost always have it.
Almost always. I'm Ricardo Brooks.
And I'm Cliff Hughes.
We have with us in studio Janae Stevens-Taylor. She is the Chief Consumer Insights Officer at Blue Dot. They went out into the field, collected the data for us, and she's been taking us through the numbers. It's time now for...
But just before, the breakdown in terms of the demographic group.
Yes.
Yes, that is sustaining wholeness. Walk us through those.
Well, so you're not seeing that sort of clear strength or weakness in a particular age demographic for Mr. Holness. All right. So when we look at those numbers, let's talk approval. Overall, his approval rating is 40%. The only group that is statistically significantly different from that is the seniors, people over the age of 65, where they're giving him an approval rating of 48%. So that is quite significant to note. But for the other age groups, the scores really hover around that 40% approval. So that approval rating is holding across all of the demographics until you get to the seniors.
And I'm very interested in that. because this is now consistent, since I've been reporting on these polls since Monday, the older voters over 65 years, they seem to be breaking in favor of the JLP and wholeness. And I keep wondering what's driving that.
Because
I have a
historically
guess.
it was not so.
Right. I have a guess. And it has to do with the budget that was read earlier this year.
Yes.
Dr. Nigel Clark did announce significant benefits for that age
Pension
demographic.
improvements,
Yes.
income tax threshold
Absolutely.
improvements.
And I'm wondering if that's what's driving this, which is not in line with what we have seen historically.
Yeah.
But we'll hear from the analysts later.
And the women.
All right. So one thing that I do want to show you before we move on from this question is how this is breaking out across the country.
Oh,
in terms of how wholeness is perceived.
Yes. So what is on screen here for those who are seeing it, we're just going to isolate his approval ratings here. So
Yes.
I want you to look at these numbers, bearing in mind, overall approval is at 40%.
Right.
All right. Now let's look at those parishes that are deviating significantly from that 40%. Look at what is happening in St. Thomas. Only 19% approval in St. Thomas.
Which confirms your good or right and wrong direction, where St. Thomas was one of those parishes,
one of the lowest,
one
if
of
not the lowest, yes.
saying
Yes.
the country was going in the wrong direction.
Yes. The corporate area.
But hold on.
Yes.
St. Thomas at 19%.
Yes.
Portland above the 40% average
Yes.
at 44. Yes?
The
Yes.
drought has eased in Portland.
In Portland.
The roadworks have become less of a nuisance, which is why St. Thomas is just an anomaly for me, because in terms of benefits as a parish, significant infrastructure development has been directed at that parish.
Yes.
So I keep wondering to myself, why? Why are we not seeing voters there saying this government,
Something
this prime
else
minister
is happening.
is
Something
working?
on the ground is happening.
Yeah.
Look at St. Mary, 45% approval rating. But he performed badly in St. Mary in the local elections in February. But his personal approval rating is at 45, above the 40% average.
Yes.
Clarin is at St. Catherine at
St. Catherine and
47.
Clarendon are also two parishes, as well as Trelawney and St. Elizabeth, and out there in Hanover, where his approval rating is above the national average.
Almost 50% in Hanover. Is
Oh,
that
yes,
Hanover?
49% approval in Hanover, 44% in St. Elizabeth, 45% in Trelawney, 46% in Clarendon, and 47% in St. Catherine.
And again, I have to point out, in Hanover, the JLP lost badly in the local elections.
And so I wonder if it's a question of local representation in terms of the performance of the members of parliament, how they are perceived in these parishes, why we saw some of the results that we did in February.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that, Janae. We're now going to
the big one.
You ready?
Question 4.
If a general election were being held today, which political party's candidate would you vote for in your constituency? Janae.
I'm going to use the word negligible to describe the difference that you will see on screen for those of you who are viewing. 31% of Jamaicans indicated that they would cast their vote for the JLP candidate in their constituency, compared to 28% who would cast their vote for the PNP candidate in their constituency. A difference that is exactly equal to the margin of error of the polls, which, as your your statistician says, is a statistical dead heat.
So they're neck and neck.
They are neck and neck. It means if the elections were in fact tomorrow, we would be waiting until the last set of ballot boxes were counted to really be able to say who the winner is. This election, if it were set right now, could go to either of the two major political parties.
So therefore, listeners, Ricardo, Janae, this means going into an election year, the two major political parties have everything to campaign and to fight for. It's going to come down to who is better organized,
Who gets their base out.
very, very important, who is able to turn out their base.
Yeah.
Because every single vote may matter in deciding who wins.
It's also going to come down, Cliff, to who has a message, a manifesto that resonates most with the 38% of Jamaicans who consider themselves undecided.
Yes.
So those are the people who say, I don't know who I would vote for, or perhaps I'd rather not vote. That amounts to 38% of the population. And so even if you're able to energize your base, what it may come down to is, can I carve away
some of those
3%,
undecideds.
5%, 10% of those undecideds to tip the scales in the party's favor?
Yeah.
It has to be said, though, that this is a fantastic result for the People's National Party. Mark Golding, Dayton Campbell, the leadership of the PNP, for them to have so significantly reversed what many people thought was a foregone conclusion, that Andrew Holness and the JLP were on track to blow Mark Golding out of the water. In fact, the Labourites consistently said they were going to ensure that he was sent into retirement. This number, 31-28, as Janae said, negligible within the margin of error, statistical
neck
dead
and
heat, neck and neck, has to be seen as a significant mark, no pun intended, for the work that they have done. Has to be.
Well, what reinforces that really is when we look at those numbers over time. All right. So the bars at the bottom there, where we see 49% for the JLP and 32% for the PNP, that would have been right before last election.
Right.
Right. And since then, the following year, rather, the JLP would have garnered 37% of the vote compared to 22% for the PNP. So a sizable 15% lead. But as we've progressed in time, the proportion of persons willing to vote for the JLP candidate in their constituency has continued to go down from that 2021 level. So in 2022, it was at 30%. February 2023 went to its lowest at 24%, and since then it's rebounded to 31% and has held right there. But on the other side of things, the PNP has continued to make incremental steps towards this 28%. So they started out at 22% in September 2021. A year later, there was a slight dip to 18%. 6 months after that, in February 2023, they got to 21%. By September of that same year, they were up to 25%. 6 months later, in February 2024, right before the local government elections, they earned 28% of voter intention, and that has held firm 6 months later. So it's been an incremental improvement and closing of the gap. It's narrowing on the JLP side and incrementally increasing on the PNP side, and it has effectively now closed the gap to 3%, which is exactly equal to the margin of error for this poll.
So the results are in. It's neck and neck, dead heat. The two parties are tied virtually. Yes, 31% saying Labour, 28% saying PNP. That's dead on with a margin of error of plus or minus 3%. Everything to play for. Time for the analysis.
We have with us online Ronaldino McLean, a university student studying economics and political science. We also have with us Dr. Nadine Spence on the phone. Marlon Morgan, member of the JLP Communication Task Force, is in studio. And I want to go first to Marlon Morgan. Marlon?
Good evening, Ricardo.
Good evening.
Cliff.
Good evening.
And, let me say good evening to Jenny as well.
Mark Golding is at your heels, at your doorstep, knocking on Jamaica House. Your reaction?
For those of us who follow the politics closely and track what is happening across Jamaica, we would have been interfacing with people out in their constituencies, and by virtue of conversations that would have been unfolding, you are detecting and would have picked up certain sentiments, certain concerns, and you're gauging people. And the fact of the matter is that the sentiments bearing out in the polls essentially accords with what one would pick up in everyday conversation across the length of Jamaica. In the main, people believe that the JLP is performing well. The government has performed admirably in terms of public service delivery and the macroeconomic fundamentals, and much of that has translated into key solutions for persons, including capital works and so on. But the challenge for the party, that being the JLP, is that persons believe that there are aspects of our stewardship, particularly as it relates to our conduct in office, that leaves a bit to be desired. And so we're going to be taking these numbers. Janae has been unpacking for us as a political party. Obviously, we're going to be doing our own deeper dive, our greater interrogation of these numbers to be able to use the data set as a management tool. Because, as I say to the members of a particular committee that I chair at one of our public bodies, the internal auditor should be a manager's best friend, because the internal audit reports essentially allows you to glean what is happening, strengthen your internal controls, and just make certain management decisions to be better stewards of your affairs. And that's what we're going to be doing as a party.
When you say conduct in office, what do you mean by that?
Well, for the first time, essentially in recent history, we would have seen corruption emerging and figuring in the data set as one of the foremost concerns. It's indeed concerning, as I said earlier this week when I was invited to present and proffer some perspectives on the outturn in terms of the poll results. And so crime, notwithstanding the 17% reduction in murders, for example, that we have had year over year at present, right? Crime figures at number one, but corruption came in at 14 or so %, which shows that there's a perception out there that the party is going to have to take into sharp focus and essentially ensure that it continues to strengthen governance, build capacity of members of the political executive, build capacity at the boards of public bodies, and we would have achieved a considerable deal of things in that regard. But it is evident that whereas jobs, for example, and cost of living issues used to figure more prominently amongst the concerns of Jamaicans, we have seen corruption coming in at number 2. And so it would be tone deaf of us, or essentially tardy of us, if we were not to just brutally and frankly look at what the data is suggesting and what the concern and perspectives amongst the electorate is essentially indicating.
Mm-hmm. Hold it there for us. We're up on a break. Let's take the break and come back with Dr. Nadine Spence and Ronaldino McLean.
We a big deal when we touch ground. Yeah, I can't see when we're pulling up. Anything for the taste what we love. Barbecue, spicy and original, flavorful, crispy, irresistible. 3 piece with the fries and a Pepsi. Go get your one big deal, stop stress me. All when we dip on the toilet, no left feet. It's a big deal.
Anything for the taste of a juicy, crunchy, irresistible KFC, big deal. 3 pieces of delicious chicken, fries and Pepsi. KFC, it's finger licking good.
Freedom, speed, agility, intelligence, friendship. These are the hallmarks that define the dolphin, the master of the seas, and are the hallmarks that inspire Sterling Asset Management. For over 20 years, we have provided investment products that give our clients financial freedom, and our service is fast, insightful, warm, and genuine. Sterling Asset Management, intelligent investing for the intelligent investor.
Not a mercy. This one is very classic, dedicated to all schoolers who are taking them.
If you've ever struggled to pass an exam, then you'll know that students today are under great pressure to get good grades and secure qualification needed to move on to higher education. The problem is that too many students are struggling alone and could really benefit from connecting with hardworking teachers and other bright students in other parts of the country and the region. Join me, Dennis Brooks, this and every Friday evening from 8 to 9, with a repeat on Saturday morning from 8 to 9. For the A-Team, a study group on radio, my team of teachers, students, and experts will break down the syllabus, giving you information, tips, and past paper questions that will help you get top grades in your upcoming exams. Follow us on Facebook Live and on Twitter and be a part of the community. It's the A-Team, Fridays at 8 p.m. with a repeat at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. It's your free extra class on radio and social media. And it's right here on Nationwide 90 FM, the revolution in media.
Exciting news! The Design Studio Nationwide 90 FM just got a whole lot bigger. Join us this and every Saturday now from 1 to 3 p.m. for an exclusive show that elevates your home, mind, and soul. Discover the latest interior design trends to create your dream sanctuary. Unlock your true potential with personal growth strategies. Nourish your body and spirit with expert wellness tips. Don't miss out on the inspiration you need to live your best life. Tune in to the Design Studio this and every Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. and take the first step towards a more fulfilling you.
Baby, sweat, baby, harder.
Thank you so much for staying with us here on Nationwide at 5, a special edition. We're giving you the results of the Nationwide Blue Dot polls, the September 2024 edition, powered by Total Tools. They almost always have it. And if you're just joining us, the headline, it's a statistical dead heat. Janae Stevens of Blue Dot says negligible. The JLP holds a negligible lead, 31% over the PNP's 28%. 38% of voters are undecided. That lead of the JLP is within the margin of error.
And I did a mathematical calculation. Mathematical. Yes? Based on the 63 seats we have in the parliament. Yes? With the JLP getting 31% of the PNP's 28. This would mean the JLP on election night could squeeze home with 33 seats to the PNP's 30. If these numbers hold through the election and the campaign, we could very well end up where we were in 2016, 32-31, 33-30. That's how close it is.
Before we give you the parish breakdown in terms of which party is leading in which parish, and I find that very, very interesting. Before we get to that, Ronaldino McLean?
Ronaldino?
No, not here.
Hello.
Hi, Ronaldino?
Yes.
Yes.
Dr.
Hello.
Spence?
I'm here. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Can you repeat? What's that?
All right, let me get Dr. Spence's reaction first.
Yes. As it relates to the statistical dead heat situation.
Yes.
I mean, as you said earlier, it's looking good for the PNP. They have closed the gap and have been closing the gap consistently. Some of us might not have seen it coming, but they certainly have. I mean, well, if you were paying attention in February, you would have seen that they would have moved up as well. So I guess their presence in the media has been consistent. That's one thing, social media or mainstream media. The PNP hasn't left the issues that are critical to them alone. They've been consistent. And they've also got a lot of support from people outside of the JLP who speak the same thing that they do. I don't know if the JLP has been able to win a cross-section of support among other influencers in the society the way the PNP has. Even if it is not to say support the PNP, but support the issues that are critical at the moment that these issues emerge. The PNP has had more of civil society on their side, sometimes even more of the press on their side. So I think they've been able to build the kinds of partnerships that are necessary to win the undecided voter and the favorability rating closer to their perspectives. So for the JLP, I don't know. I think the JLP has become, even though a party with such a huge majority, they have sought to occupy less and less space.
They've become complacent.
Yes, so you don't see this pushing of their agenda, their perspective isn't out there. As a matter of fact, one of the things I noticed about Nigel Clark is that unless something was decidedly a part of his ministry before all of this happened, he wouldn't speak. You wouldn't hear much from him. You're not hearing, it's just in the last 2 weeks you started hearing from, perhaps not 2 weeks, but just before the Prime Minister went through, you started seeing the Prime Minister at the Wednesday conferences and so on. And they're not speaking to people as much as they used to. Now, I know people might be saying that they're on the ground, but being on the ground in the way they're on the ground isn't being effective. So is it that they've lost confidence? Are they of the idea that they should, work hard? I don't know what it is, but their strategy of engagement and of winning partnerships and getting people to see their perspectives is not working in their favor. So I think sorry, go ahead.
Ronaldina McLean, yes? How you interpret these numbers?
Yeah, so like everyone already has said, the numbers show that Mark Golding has done well for himself, regenerating his image, pulling up his support. I'm looking at among men, and it seems that he has a greater support among men than women. So men have been instrumental in pulling up that image, and that Andrew Holness and the Jamaica Labour Party have lagged a little bit. They haven't moved much. This closing of the gap reflects more of a PNP movement than a JLP one. I think it's really, really, really interesting how much consistently the lead of Andrew Holness's favorability and approval has remained over his party. The almost 10% gap between people who say they support Andrew Holness or approve of his performance and who say that they will vote for the Jamaica Labour Party. It's almost incomprehensible. And it has remained, it seems, in the polling for years, but something has to explain it. Traditionally we would have been looking at a gap between, say, an Andrew Holness approval and a JLP approval, and think to ourselves, well, lots of people in Jamaica vote on who they want to see as Prime Minister. So that bodes well for Andrew Holness in his capacity as the leader of the party in bringing out all those people who say they support him. But now we're contemplating that there's that gap between support for JLP and support for Andrew Holness, and thinking, well, it's the people who say they support the JLP who are turning out to vote for the JLP if an election were called. And there remains that almost 10% of people who say they support Andrew Holness, which we don't know if they're going to come out to vote for his party. And that's really an interesting thing to think about. It's something that Andrew Holness and the Jamaica Labour Party apparatus should be thinking about. Also, it seems I really want to parse the numbers, or I really want to see greater separation between the numbers of undecideds and the numbers that say they would rather not vote, because that is combined in the numbers, and that number has remained steadily about 40% over time. I think it was exactly 38% right before the September 2020 general elections. So it would seem to me that the biggest chunk of that quote unquote undecided population is really people who say they won't vote anyway. When it's helpful to drill down at that percentage of Jamaicans who say they're actually undecided and actually contemplating, because something that was revealed in yesterday's poll is that there seems to be a decent chunk of people who are warming up more to Andrew Holness over the past year, who don't necessarily say they trust him as yet, but who move from saying they're distrustful of him and perhaps his party to being a little bit more undecided on that matter. So it'd be useful and helpful maybe to get those specifics separated out.
Thank you, Ronaldino. We have Desmond Richards on the line as well. Desmond, good evening.
Good evening, Cliff. Good evening to the other panelists.
Let me hear your take on the party standings.
Well, most people would say that the PNP has done good, but I would say that they should have done better. You see, one of the things that we must remember when we look at polling results and elections in Jamaica, we have had a system where each party has done 2 terms. Apart from the PNP was the only party since 1944 that did 3 terms.
4
terms, right? So I would say yes, Mark and his team has been working and they have done well, but they should have done better. Now, the poll results, for me, and I'm speaking now as a reporter, for me, the poll results is a reflection of what the ordinary Jamaican has been experiencing. Cliff, and you're supposed to know this. The life of the ordinary Jamaican has been very, very tough, you know. People are having it difficult. Just this evening, I'm talking to 2 residents over in Portland. People are having difficult in accessing health benefits. The cost of living is so high, people are having it hard to send their children to school to buy food, pay rent, pay transportation. And one of the things that the ordinary Jamaican is feeling it, right? And therefore, they believe that a change of government might assist. Now, for me, one of the things that the pollsters have not looked at. Now, when you look at the life of the ordinary Jamaican since 1962, you know, it's something that we should be crying about, you know. And both parties, only 2 parties have formed government in Jamaica. Over 50,000 people have been murdered in Jamaica since 1962. Look at the education system. Look at it. Cliff, you know that you have thousands of Jamaicans right now who have problems getting water.
Yes.
For example, where I was born and raised, the people there, we don't know what it is to pipe water. We have to harvest water. And this can be replicated across Jamaica. Significant. Thousands of Jamaicans since 1962 and before, they only have water that they harvest with their own drums or those who can afford to build tanks. I am saying that the 2 political parties, yes, some progress has been made, you know. But when you look at the lives of the ordinary Jamaican, boy, it is something that we should be shedding tears about.
And we see it in the poll results, you know. I call it the misery index in the country. And we see it in the poll results. Yes? People say 44% the country is heading in the wrong direction. Yes? Because of their personal circumstances, their lived realities. Yeah? But Desmond, what is interesting as well, yeah, and you make the point about the PNP, you're suggesting the PNP should be further ahead. Why are they not further ahead?
Well, one of the things you have to remember,
I think I said that wrong. The PNP should be ahead.
Right.
Yes, the JLP is still ahead, although it's within the margin of error.
Yes.
But you're saying the PNP should be ahead, clearly now.
Yes. But one of the things you have to remember, when you look at PNP leaders since 1944, that this leader, Mark Golin, is relatively new. He is a new leader. He is new to politics. Of course, he has been associated with Trenchtown for some while, right? But he is a new leader. And he will need more time. He will need more time to prove himself to the Jamaican people. And you must also remember that there was some serious internal issues in the PNP. Now, those issues those wounds don't heal up overnight. You know, they are healing, but they are not totally healed.
The question, though, Desmond,
I would say,
the question: does he have the time?
Huh?
Does he have the time now?
Well, next year is election. So as it really as it relates to time, he doesn't have the time. So he will have to work with what he has. Right?
Hold it there for us, Desmond Richards. We're up on a break. We should also tell the listeners, Cliff, that we did invite members of the leadership of the People's National Party to be a part of these discussions. They declined. Let's take the break and come back with more.
Choose your life insurance coverage, apply, and pay online. Live the e-life with Sagicor Life. The time by Sagicor Life is...
It's 3 minutes after 7.
Who's gonna win? Punching a little fella. Tasty beats, summer promotion there. Who's gonna win this $1 million? You have a chance to win, my you just follow.
Win $1 million in the Tasty Beat summer promotion. Purchase any Tasty Cheese product for a chance to enter. Find our Tasty Beat flyer, scan the QR code, upload your receipt with your Tasty Cheese, fill in the other details, and that's it. Plus each week, win $60,000 and other small prizes from Tasty Cheese. Conditions apply. Authorized under Section 58(3) of the Betting, Gaming, and Lotteries Act.
We can light up your world with the rays of the sun, putting pure energy in the palm of your hand.
For over 20 years, Fosrich has been putting a world of energy in your hands. Now we bring you big savings with our line of solar energy products and LED lighting. Financing now available for all your home and commercial retrofit projects. Consult with our in-house staff or certified professional engineers for all your electrical needs. Fosrich Lifestyle. It's electric. Fosrich, your energy world.
4 minutes after 7. Thank you so much for staying with us here on Nationwide at 5, a special edition. We are giving you the findings of the September 2024 edition of the Nationwide Blue Dot polls. They were powered by Total Tools, and Total Tools, they say they almost always have it for all your tooling needs. If you're just joining us, it's Advantage JLP, but I keep using the word Janae uses. It's negligible. 31% have said that they would vote for the JLP. 28% would vote for the PNP. 38% of voters remain undecided. That 31-28 breakdown within the margin of error. We want to now show you, going back to Janae Stevens-Taylor. I get it right? It's Stevens-Taylor.
Yes.
Yes. From Blue Dot. The breakdown in terms of parishes where the political parties are showing strength across the island. Janae.
Sure. All right. So let us start with the ruling JLP. They have an especially strong footing. I would perhaps say the strongest footing right now in Portland, which is interesting because there was a time when that was the other way around and we were all, or eyebrows were raised at that, given the candidates, the MPs rather, from the parish of Portland. But it seems all is well in the parish of Portland again, and certainly in favor of the JLP. 57% of people residing in Portland indicate that they would cast their vote for the JLP candidates in their constituencies versus only 11% that would vote for the opposition PNP. So that is quite a significant difference there. When we also look at the parish of Trelawney, the JLP would secure 3 times as much or 3 times the vote of the PNP. 39% of residents of Trelawney would vote for the JLP versus only 13% who would cast their vote for the PNP candidate. Also in the parish of Hanover, the JLP is ahead by 10 points, with 35% indicating that they would vote for the JLP candidate versus only 25% for the PNP candidate. Other parishes where the JLP is ahead: Clarendon with 33% versus the PNP's 19%. St. Catherine with 35% versus the PNP's 23%. Kingston and St. Andrew 31% versus the PNP's 25%. And St. Mary 34% versus the PNP's 19%. So just to recap, the JLP ahead in the parishes of Hanover, Trelawney, Clarendon, St. Catherine, St. Mary, Portland, and Kingston and St. Andrew.
I'm going to take out Hanover and Trelawney because those are interesting to me, considering the results of the local government polls, where the PNP virtually swept those two parishes. But what's interesting for me is St. Anne. At this hour, right now, as we speak, the Prime Minister is in St. Anne. A by-election happens in Northeast St. Anne on Monday. Prime Minister is having a spot meeting, a rally in St. Anne. And based on this, Blue Dot has found, listeners, that the People's National Party is ahead in St. Anne.
That is correct, by a margin of 10%. So 36% of residents of the parish of St. Anne indicated that they would vote for the PNP candidate in their constituencies versus only 26% who would cast their vote for the JLP candidate.
And the other parishes, the PNP leading in?
The PNP also leads in the parish of St. Thomas with 29% of voter intention compared to only 18% for the JLP. And in the parish of Westmoreland with 30% voter intentions versus only 18% for the JLP. And most significantly in the parish of Manchester with a 40-point lead, securing 59% of the vote versus only 19% for the JLP.
What has happened in Manchester?
The JLP base there has collapsed. We saw it in the local elections.
But Cliff,
yes,
one of the things that you must remember, over the years, I'm talking about St. Anne, is the PNP is apart from Alva, that Gallimore.
Yes, Neville.
That's the Gallimore seat. That is, I think, Southeast St. Anne.
No, Southwest.
Southwest.
Where
And
Xavier
you know
Main
that-
is now MP.
Yes, that constituency has been a JLP constituency for decades because Gallimore's father was the man there.
Yes.
But the other seats were always seats that were dominated by PNP over the years,
Yes, up until the arrival of one Shahini Robinson.
Yes, is Shahini Robinson in Ochirayas era there that changed that picture. So I am not surprised if PNP is leading in St. Anne because it has been a PNP parish.
Yes.
In Portland, the PNP presence is weak.
Yeah.
Right, and that I think is the reason why the JLP is so dominant over there because over the years that after the death of Dr. Forget that doctor there in East Portland.
Dr. Bloomfield.
Dr. Bloomfield, right? And the PNP the PNP presence there has been weak. And we must remember that Portland has a history of JLP. I am surprised. I am surprised that the JLP is weak in St. Thomas because listeners and viewers would know that St. Thomas has been a JLP parish for decades. Well,
except Desmond, there was a period when the PNP did pretty well in St. Thomas.
St. Thomas in particular.
Yeah, Vi Thompson was her name in the East. Then you had the long run of Fenton Ferguson. Yes. I think it was Selvin Duar out there. The PNP has come back. It is no longer a solid, safe JLP. James Roberts in the West continues to win. He's into what, his fifth term? Yes. So you know what is, and I want to hear Marlon Morgan, who is with us on the JLP Communication Task Force. Marlon Morgan, the pollsters are saying in St. Elizabeth it's a tie, and St. James, those are supposed to be two solid JLP parishes.
Well, Cliff
Jenny?
and.
Yeah, so in St. Elizabeth, not quite a tie, but the difference there is, as it is in the overall picture, equal to the margin of error. So in St. Elizabeth, we have 30% of persons who indicate that they would cast their vote for the JLP candidate, and 27% of persons indicating they would cast their vote for the PNP candidate. So that difference of 3% equal to the margin of error. So statistically, we could call it a tie or a very close contest in that parish. In St. James, that margin is even smaller, only 1%, and the PNP is the one with that 1% leg up.
In St. James?
In St. James, yes.
That is the parish of Dr. Chang, Ed Bartlett, and Ed Bartlett. Oh. Marlon?
Yes, Cliff, and we note the tight race as it is shaping up in St. Elizabeth and St. James as a space, and you know that that is of some moment in terms of the political calculus, because loosely speaking, it is said that where the West goes, the rest goes. Yeah, but there's an important bit of perspective I'd like to bring to the discussion, and that is the reality that following on the COVID-19 pandemic, fallout as it relates to global supply chains, inflationary pressures and so on, you find that there has been a considerable focus on the part of the government on just governing and managing the affairs of the state. And there's a view that there has been a considerably disproportionate focus on the politics. And why am I raising that? The PNP has essentially been on the road almost non-stop. And they would have been around the island several times over. Mark Golding would have been interfacing. And so the truth is that we now have an opportunity, an increased opportunity as a political party to be getting more into the space. And I think in the weeks and months ahead, the public is going to be seeing more of that. Because make no mistake, Paul Francis and Stephen Francis of MVP Track Club, yeah, they have distinguished themselves for having a propensity, Cliff, Ricardo, Janae, and other panelists, of conditioning their athletes and getting their athletes to peak at the right time. Why am I saying this? As I said before, in the political calculus, to the extent that the JLP is going to be getting on in earnest in interfacing and pressing the pavement, as the Prime Minister and the team are doing as we speak in St. Anne, you are likely to see the JLP like a well-conditioned athlete as opposed to the athlete that shows good preseason form and then fails to materialize or get the gold medal at the Olympics or the World Championships. You're going to see the JLP beginning to go in the ascendancy. That's our view and our assessment, because the PNP has essentially peaked. Our view and my own assessment is that they're going to essentially hold that pattern at best, whilst there's opportunity for us in the JLP to be growing and resonating more with the populace, because that's what the people are clamoring out for. That's a sentiment we pick up as a party. The folks want to be seeing us up and personal, interfacing with them, and of course engaging with them out in their communities.
Hold on, Desmond Richards. Let me, because I want to ask Marlon something.
Yeah.
Marlon, historically, I've heard it said, and I think I can say now in my lived reality, I'm seeing it, that the JLP, good in government, bad at politics once in government. They allow Belmont Road to just sort of, it's there.
Limp along.
Yeah, right? And I think you just sort of conceded that. Why is that though?
Well, in this dispensation, I have given you a sense as to, what has played out. The COVID-19 pandemic had been a 100-year event in terms of thus the scope, magnitude, the fallout, and all that had to happen to keep a lid on things and ensure that you minimize lives lost and, of course, you optimize lives saved and just navigate the macroeconomic realities and stabilize the country, build the institutions that underpin our fiscal discipline to be able to deliver more for the people of Jamaica. Because oftentimes, when we speak of the macroeconomy, people don't necessarily realize that that is what enables us to do more for our pensioners. That's what enables us to do more in terms of build out of water systems across communities. It enables you to fix more roads and do all of these things, Cliff and Ricardo, without having to borrow funds. So we are doing it out of Jamaica's resources. And so we do accept that, having regard to the considerable focus that has been placed on simply governing and managing the affairs of the state from a government standpoint, a disproportionate focus has been placed, and essentially an opportunity now arised to kind of get in the thick of things more on the political side. I speak primarily of our headquarters, Belmont Road, and all the activities that center on that in terms of getting out in the communities, pressing the pavement, and of course messaging to the people of Jamaica and showing them in demonstrable ways and in no uncertain terms that the government has been delivering, the government has been improving people's lives, notwithstanding some of the challenges that Desmond Richards would have articulated earlier, which importantly, the people believe that it is the JLP, Cliff and Ricardo, that is better placed to treat with some of the issues that continue to confront them. Issues of cost of living and so on.
That's certainly what the data says.
What Mr. Morgan is saying is that if the people vote for the JLP, then they will have better water supplies, better roads.
That is
better
emphatically what
access-
I'm saying, sir.
Better access to health. That, sir.
Absolutely, and the data set suggests
And
that.
I am
Operation
telling you-
Refresh by Christopher Tufton suggests that. Clinics
And I
being
am
fixed
telling-
left, right, and
I am
center.
I am telling you, sir, that you see, I have heard that promise. I have heard that promise made to Jamaicans multiple times since 1962. Multiple times. And 62 years after independence, and as we speak, hundreds, thousands of Jamaicans are still and have still not benefited, have still don't see the results of those promises.
I hear the perspective, Desmond, but if I may, could I just suggest to you?
No, we have to leave it there. We're well past.
Well, I
our
wanted
break.
to give him the objective reality
hold
or
on,
assessment in terms of all infrastructure work going on.
Desmond, Ronaldino, Dr. Nadine Spence, thank you very much. Yes, we're running out of time and we need to bring on some other perspectives. I want to thank you so much. Thanks, Desmond. Thanks, Ronaldino McLean. Thanks, Dr. Nadine Spence. Thank you very much. It's 18 minutes after 7. Stay with us.
Exciting news! The Design Studio Nationwide 90 FM just got a whole lot bigger. Join us this and every Saturday now from 1 to 3 p.m. for an exclusive show that elevates your home, mind, and soul. Discover the latest interior design trends to create your dream sanctuary. Unlock your true potential with personal growth strategies. Nourish your body and spirit with expert wellness tips. Don't miss out on the inspiration you need to live your best life. Tune in to the Design Studio this and every Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. and take the first step towards a more fulfilling you.
Make me sweat, make me harder.
Undeniable that we should be together.
The true beauty of music is that it connects people. It carries a message. It speaks to you. It changes you. And that's exactly what we do just for you every Sunday as we take you to Urban Paradise, 9:10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Urban Paradise is our weekly musical journey that will serve up 110 glorious minutes of positive storytelling through music, mixed in with inspirational features to provoke thought and to heal the soul.
Like a dream come true, just wanna be with you.
So join me, Diane Ashton Smith, this and every Sunday, 9:10 a.m. to 11 a.m. here on Nationwide 90 FM, a revolution in media. Urban Paradise, opening our hearts, connecting to others.
Twenty-one minutes after 7. We are into the third and final hour of the special edition of the Nationwide Blue Dot Poll results, powered by Total Tools. If you missed it, it's a statistical dead heat. Both political parties within the margin of error. The governing Jamaica Labour Party slightly ahead, with 31% saying they would vote for its candidates, as against 28% for the opposition People's National Party. The margin of error, 3%. Therefore, the lead is within that margin of error. It is a statistical dead heat. Everything to play for.
Marlon Morgan?
Folks.
Yeah, you were making a point before the break.
By
Jermaine Barrett is also with us, political commentator, public commentator. But before the break, Marlon, you wanted to finish a point.
I wanted to just treat with an observation Desmond Richards placed on the table. The truth is that we do have a space, a society, where persons would feel as though things are not looking up for them. They're not able to stretch the dollar as much as they would want to, and their household is challenged. Yeah. But notwithstanding those perspectives, and it's a sentiment with which, as responsible players in the political space, you empathize, because you realize that benefits do not necessarily reach people at the same time and on the same scale as it does with others, in terms of whether their community road get fixed or so on. But the important point to note here is that any objective assessment as to what has happened in Enterprise Jamaica, you will see in terms of infrastructure, the number of police stations that would have been rehabilitated, the number of clinics and health centers that have been attended to in terms of renovations and just making it better for the elderly persons who interact with those facilities and other users of public health services. So I would just implore Desmond, notwithstanding the fact that there are people who are, finding it difficult to make ends meet, just to think of minimum wage, think of the abolition of hard tuition fees, the provision of support in terms of nutrition for youngsters, accessing skills training at heart. Just consider the composite of things that the government has been doing, and you'll recognize that demonstrably and unequivocally this JP government is better placed to deliver for the people of Jamaica relative to the PNP, and that is why the PNP is not able to articulate any credible and compelling plan or program of work, notwithstanding being on the road over the past 3 years campaigning.
When Marlon is done, we may have to rename that studio the Spin Studio, because that is some amount of political spin. Marlon is good at his job. Jermaine Barrett. Jermaine?
Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, hearing you. Your reaction to the party standings?
Well, it is really a manifestation of how robustly competitive the political landscape is. I echo all the sentiments shared before, that the People's National Party has everything to celebrate, and the Jamaica Labour Party really has to really think about, how is it that they can press the accelerator to go ahead, as they proceed towards the general election. One of the things I also want to appreciate, though, for our listeners, and certainly it's my perspective, that I think the JLP has quite honestly a harder job. And I say that because we are living within the context of an administration, a GLP-led administration. The evidence is there, and I agree that there is a tremendous amount of value that has come out. But particularly now with, for example, corruption being the second greatest concern by the electorate, crime still a bothersome issue. We heard earlier this week that for crime to really be a negligible issue, or for the impact of crime to be reduced, we have to have substantial reduction. That's not going to happen anytime soon. And so these are big things that are confronting the administration. And again, against that background, there is the PNP that is really, to say nipping at the heels of the JLP is an understatement. They are aggressive. They are tenacious. And I think with every single release of these kinds of polls that show them accelerating far faster than the JLP, it's going to really inspire them to go hard against the JLP. I think what the PNP needs to do now really is to showcase to the Jamaicans that it has a plan. Yes, that amidst the horror of their lives that they are experiencing now, there is a solution. And a part of the problem that I'm having with the PNP and many other of us as public commentators have been echoing for the longest while is that we need to see the nuts and bolts of the plan. We don't want plans that are grandiose, but then ultimately threaten the fiscal stability of the country. We don't want plans that are unrealistic. A part of the disappointment with Jamaican voters is that many of them have been disappointed by major plans by both political parties that have become, that remain unmet and have caused them to shift into the undecided or the committed not to vote group. Okay. I think I'll pause my comments here for now.
All right. Before we go back to Deacon Espute, that question, that point Jermaine just made about the People's National Party, these results may fire them up. Janae has for us listeners, let's call it the enthusiasm mark. Yeah, how excited the base support of the political parties are, and I find it very instructive. I picked it up when we compared Holness and Mark Golding for the direct vote for Prime Minister. But talk to us about what you found, Jenny.
Sure. So, for the same question, asking if the general elections were being held today, which party's candidate would you vote for in your constituency? When we separate that by self-reported party affiliation, PNP supporters appear to be significantly more energized to cast their vote for the candidates representing their party. So 82% of PNP supporters indicated that they will cast their vote for the PNP candidate in their respective constituencies. That is ahead of the 77% of JLP supporters who say that they would vote for the JLP candidates in their constituencies. So there is a noted difference there in terms of enthusiasm of the base. And when you are in this sort of dead heat situation, it is long held and said that it's who gets the base out that is likely to prevail.
But we just have to cast our minds back 6 months prior in the local government elections. And I was saying to Cliff, when I did the comparison, you could see when I compared the local government result to 2016, because I consider 2020 to be something of an anomaly, you could see that the People's National Party vote share had largely returned. The JLP's vote share dipped significantly. And then anecdotally, the Labourites say some of them never come out. This is suggesting the comrades are far more fired up than the Labourites.
And that's understandable. There are 8 years in the political wilderness, that is the opposition, yes. They feel they need for them time for eat a food, yeah. And I hate to put it that way, but that is part of the reasoning on the ground. The PNP has not been used to being out of government for so long. Yes, they have never been out of government for more than 10 years, between 44 and 55. Yeah, not been. So time come. That's the point. They say time come.
Yes.
Now,
Peter
the other thing that I just wanted to point out is that we said two things needed to hold. One, you needed to get your base out, and two, who could sway the larger share of the neutral or politically unaffiliated. Right now, these numbers suggest that the JLP is carving out a larger share of that vote. 14% of the politically neutral indicate that they would cast their vote for the JLP candidate, compared to only 9% who would cast their vote for the PNP candidate.
That is very significant.
Because
when you have such a high proportion of those who are saying that, listen, right now, none of them. Yeah? 38% undecided.
Correct.
You're saying 14% of those who have identified, yeah, say they would go with the JLP.
With the JLP.
Versus 9%.
Who would go with the PNP, and then a whopping 73% who have not yet made up their minds.
So you see, there's so much to play for.
Movement can happen.
Yes.
And on either side.
Yes. Peter Espute. Good evening. Your take on this. Your take on the numbers.
You know, you asked me before and I gave earlier comment. But, you know, old Chinese curse, may you live in exciting times. And it seems like every week there's some new revelation or some new expose. And this Blue Dot poll was done just as the Integrity Commission report was coming out.
Yes.
It could very well be that the situation on the ground has shifted even since this poll was taken. And we won't know until there's another poll. But, you know, there is a bit of time between now and the next election. Everybody's saying that. There is time for the JLP to try and recover. There is time for the PNP to do even better. I think the next few months will tell. What is going to happen with the Integrity Commission report remains to be seen. It has to be handled well. Also, I see that the government is pressing ahead with constitutional reform. They're going to table the bill to remove the king, and they're going to table the bill to have a referendum. So that is going to change the whole political complexion of the country. So we look forward to the next few weeks and few months. It's exciting times, and it's fluid.
Yeah.
And, you know, not being Nostradamus, I really can't predict what is going to happen down the line. But I think the media and civil society have to be very careful that they analyze carefully and correctly and watch what the people are thinking.
Yeah, that's fluid. That's the word.
Yes.
Yes, it can go anyway.
And on that point of the Integrity Commission report, I think that was tabled on the 17th.
Right. So by then,
right.
Of the 1,246, we would have already spoken to 1,105. So I want that to be well understood, that we would not have talked to a significant number of people after that report was released.
And it has, of course, taken some time for people to digest the findings. Yeah.
Yes. 28 minutes going up to 8 o'clock. Peter?
Yes.
And Jermaine Espute. Do we have Helene Davis, right? Okay. But Peter Espute, you did say there's time, yes? And in politics, a week is a long time. Yeah? But let us do the analysis in terms of here we are with a government going into its 9th year, yes? Having to face the biggest crisis facing any government since 1944, COVID, yes? Having to face the fallout from that, the cost of living crisis globally and in Jamaica, we were not spared, yes? And they're still virtually neck and neck. What does that tell you about the challenge facing Mark Golding's opposition, PNP?
Because that people in Jamaica have short memories. That if in fact the government did so well with the COVID pandemic, and yet a few months later are slipping in the polls, that people have short memories. The people are not so much going to look at how well the government did with COVID. I mean, what I must tell you, the part of your poll that most struck me was the opinion about the performance of Nigel Clark. I would have thought more people would have said what a wonderful finance minister he was. But by and large, if my recollection is correct, people were rather lukewarm. He was only fair, you know. So that either again suggests that people have short memories, or in fact, he did not touch their bank books, their pockets.
They're not feeling it on the ground.
They're not
what
feeling
they
it.
always say. Yes.
That the macroeconomic numbers are great, and that impresses the IMF.
Yes.
But it doesn't impress the people.
Yes.
So here we have a situation where possibly the government is playing to one market and losing in another, because the two markets possibly are incompatible. If the IMF likes it, chances are the people won't, and if the people like it, we're going to be accused of recklessness.
Yes,
yes.
So I think this is what you call being caught between a rock and a hard place.
But I think you have put your finger on something here that must be concentrating the minds of the Prime Minister and the senior party figures in the Labour Party. 12 months to go. You're slipping in the polls. You have done well based on the macroeconomic indicators. But your electorate, your voters, your base are telling you, I don't feel it.
And Nigel Clark is going.
And Nigel Clark is going.
And we don't know who is coming in to take his place.
Precisely.
Chances are that person is not going to have the same reputation. It's going to be, if you pardon the expression, somewhat green.
Yes, or will we now see running with it?
Well, that's the point.
Yeah.
The Omar Davis syndrome.
And Jermaine Barrett, that's precisely what the People's National Party has tried to capitalize on. The fact that the people keep saying they're not feeling it. Yes? And the narrative now is, you're not feeling it because the governing party, they're only interested in their rich friends and their friends in Washington, D.C.
Absolutely, and the data does bear that out, that message is resonating, at least to some extent, in as much as when you look at the younger share of the votes, it's beginning now, I think, to tend towards the PNP to a far greater rate than at any time in the most recent history. And I think it points to two things. One, young persons are generally more urgent in terms of their demands for improvements in their lives, more so than an elderly population, an older population that has been there. They've seen multiple administrations and are a bit more sort of stoic in their approach. And so there's a fierce urgency of now that typifies how young people operate, and you know, the macroeconomic fiscal descriptors don't connect with them as much as it might connect with an older audience that is a little bit more long in the tooth, if you will. And I think that's a bit of the analysis that I'm getting from as I examine the data.
Mm-hmm. But I don't want us to count out Andrew Holness.
I was just going to chime in and say that there was a question that we asked in the poll about who the electorate thought was better equipped to handle some of the challenges that continue to plague the society. And they gave the Holness administration the nod for that question. So there is some degree...
It wasn't a nod, it was 36% versus 23%. That is well outside the margin of error.
Well outside of the margin of error, yes.
Yes.
But it does show some measure of appreciation for the macroeconomic advancements and the improvements and the infrastructural development and so on. Yes, people are still not feeling it in their pockets. So now when it's time to cast their votes, you see the gap come down to just 3%. Right? So those who can recognize and sort of base their voting on those more long-term development items that are the focus of the government will still continue to be energized and want to see that government continuity so that those programs don't get tossed to the wayside. But those who are prioritizing their personal circumstances will not be in favor of the government, as we see from the polls.
Your next poll, you're focusing a lot on what we could call pull factors. What would make you vote for either Holness or Golding or their party? But there's a push factor, you know. There's the people running away from certain things. They're running away from authoritarianism. They're running away from lack of consultation. People are running away from anti-environmentalism. People are running away from the fear that they're trying to push constitutional reform down our throats. People are running away from the fact that it seems that the government is trying to take away the schools from the churches. And so all of what you have said about the good things about macroeconomic stability and roads and infrastructure, and all, that's one thing. Those are pull factors that attract people to vote for the Holness government. But there's no indication of what might be turning off people and pushing people away and making people run as fast as they can away from the Holness government. And maybe in the next poll, you could ask a couple of questions about what people don't like that is pushing them away from voting for this party or the other.
Fair. But the point I was making, and Jenny, talked about the governance part, but Andrew Holness as a politician has proven to be resilient. Recall, and I think a lot of people forget, in 2016, the sink, the spoon, cup, plate, water, everything was thrown at him. I think people forget. He prevailed. And there has been a steady strategy of attacking him, to weaken him, tear him down. Because I suppose the idea is, if he's that popular, if he's that strong, if you weaken him, you weaken the JLP.
And the JLP has been leader-centric.
Precisely.
Always.
Right.
Thiago,
Buster,
Bustamante,
all of them.
And
Xerox, and Sangster to a lesser extent.
And I dare say in the past, the strategy has worked. The demonizing of the leader of the Jamaica Labour Party, it has worked in large measure, I think.
Certainly where Siaga is concerned.
Absolutely. Andrew Holness, by these numbers, he's proving to be resilient. He's proving that the Jamaican people like him. And I don't want us, even though I agree, it's looking very good for the PNP, to count that out. Because I think it was Jermaine who said it, or Ronaldinho, we still have an electorate that when that time comes, they say, who do I want to be the Prime Minister? And that factors heavily into how they make the decision.
And Ricardo, of the two factors that I think, broadly speaking, are propelling people's decisions, the sense of just exhaustion with the pain of living in Jamaica, the economic struggles, the infrastructural difficulties, and so forth, versus the trends, the macroeconomic indicators, the economic improvements. I think the ones that, in my estimation, are create a firmer foundation from which people will likely go and cast their X beside a particular political party is the indicators that say macroeconomically and infrastructurally. When you talk about healthcare, you're seeing marked improvement. Yes, it is painful. Yes, it's difficult for me now. But when I reflect on the message that is coming to me from the PNP, which is a message that is either confusing or unrealistic, or just a lot of hitting out at the JLP for issues that may not be as potent in my mind in terms of sort of crafting my decision making. I think the JLP has a slight edge. What it needs to do is to curate that message and ensure that that message is communicating to the Jamaican people in as honest a way as possible. And I must commend the gentleman here representing the JLP. I have been listening to him for some time now.
Marlon Morgan.
And I think it is refreshing that the atmosphere of arrogance and contempt that oftentimes comes out of a political party that is speaking defensively. I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing, yes, I'm hearing you. Yes, we have to go back to the drawing board. Yes, we need to put in more work. Yes, we need to communicate better. And that, I think, is a part of what is needed to gain the advantage when the elections come around next time for the JLP.
And that's why I say Marlon Morgan is good at his job. I agree with Jermaine. Yes.
Let me introduce political commentator, trade unionist, Helene Davis-White. Helene, good evening. Good evening.
Evening, Cliff. Evening, everyone.
Good.
Hi, Helene.
You heard the numbers. You heard the party standings. Your reaction?
Well, I think the PNP has to be almost jubilant, because I don't think anybody in the JLP expected that, having won by this landslide in 2020, that they would be where they are today, because certainly a lot of the JLP supporters and even those in leadership seem to have felt, that Mark Golding would never be able to come to the position where he is now in terms of leading the JLP, the PNP, to this kind of position of, them actually being able to look Jamaica House in the face at this point in time. So I think they have to be happy that they are where they are. The JLP, I think, has to do some introspection, because clearly, although they are ahead because of the situation with the margin of error, they are not where I think they would want to be, and therefore they have to do the introspection and come up with what the Jamaican people clearly want to hear. I think part of the problem in terms of the leader, yes, Hornet still leads the party in terms of voter support, but I think in recent times a lot of persons have been turned off because of a kind of arrogance that has come out, and people are not very enamored with that kind of approach as well, and so they have to be very careful. Yes, you have macroeconomic stability, but at the end of the day, the PNP can campaign on the fact that they're the ones who commenced that macroeconomic stability. So I think the JLP has to really begin to look at itself and look at the areas that they can maximize. I'd heard that in terms of the persons who identify as being undecided, that there is a lead in terms of those who will vote for the JLP over the PNP. That is a positive for the JLP that they will have to maximize, because the PNP at this point in time, it appears, will be bringing out their entire base, which was not the case in 2020 because of the leadership race and all of that. So the JLP has to be able to find others to support, because at this point in time, the PNP is likely to bring out their entire base, and so they have to the JLP has to be able to identify additional persons from the ranks of the undecided who will actually come out and vote for the JLP.
Okay. Hold it for us, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take our final break and come back with more.
Looking to add a touch of elegance to your room? The Lighting World by Fosrich is having a massive lighting blowout sale. Get your wall lamps, chandeliers, ceiling lamps, fans, and more at amazingly low prices. Sale begins Sunday, September 29, with up to 50% off selected items. It's the Fosrich Lighting Blowout Sale, September 29. Shop and save only at Fosrich. Open Sundays.
This is a public service announcement from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. The Ministry of Health and Wellness wishes to advise awardees of the Dr. Barrington Waite Memorial Scholarship Program that the deadline to complete their bonding agreement has been extended to Friday, October 18, 2024. Awardees who face challenges with meeting the requirements of their bonding agreement are encouraged to call the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service at 876-922-8600 or visit the office at 30 National Hero Circle, Kingston 4. They can also send an email to collet.mcausland@mof.gov.jm. That was a public service announcement from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
11 minutes going up to 8 o'clock. We are winding down now. If you just joined us, the poll results, the findings, we started on Monday morning at 6. It's now Friday, September 27. And the headlines out of these polls, everything to play for. It's neck and neck, a statistical dead heat. 12 months before the elections are due. They can be held any moment, of course. What is facing 89 Old Hope Road and Belmont Road this evening? Everybody has now got to buckle down. It's politics time again in Jamaica. They're all beginning at the starting line.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because
on your marks.
On your marks. It's dead heat. Mm-hmm. Yes. So people will now have to go back into the field, put in longer hours, yes, making sure that they tighten and improve their political organization, know where their voters are, yes, make sure they energize their voters and get ready, because it is going to be, based on these blue dot numbers, a very, very close selection.
And just remind us, based on the mathematical calculation, based on these findings, if the election were held today, the result would be JLP
33, PNP 30.
Mm-hmm. I have a question here from a listener. I'm going to put
so
a question.
That can flip.
Yes.
Based on organization on the day.
Yeah.
Who is better in terms of getting their voters to the polling, to the ballot box. Yeah.
Which is why that enthusiasm number matters so much. 82% of PNP supporters saying they're ready to go versus 77% of JLP supporters. Of course, the JLP 14-9 has an advantage among unaffiliated voters. A question from a listener who's asked me to put the question to the panel, but I'm going to put it to you, Cliff. The listener says, the advantage the PNP is now enjoying, is it as a result of a genuine effort by the PNP or the public's response to the many errors made by the JLP?
I think it's a combination of both, frankly. I think that the government has scored a number of own goals, and the PNP has become better organized over the last 12 to 15 months. Yes, they have been largely been able to paper, yes, and to mend some of the divisions, the cracks. Yes, I know, for example, there are issues coming out of the conference that people are upset about. The Vibes Cartel presentation, but they're not going to say it publicly because everyone is seized of the task at hand. They have an election to win.
And time come.
and time come. Yeah, so they are going to close ranks. Yeah, the JLP in government, burdened with government, about to lose one of their best political assets. Yeah, Nigel Clark is suffering from a level of fatigue, if not complacency. Yeah, and the JLP base, yeah, as we saw in February, not energized, not motivated to be out there. Yeah, they have a bigger problem. Jermaine Barrett is correct. The Labour Party has a bigger problem tonight. Yeah, to whip its organization back into shape that it can take on a united People's National Party. When the PNP is united, it's very difficult to beat.
All right. I think this is the time when we start to have a roundup, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me start with you, Marlon Morgan.
Well, gentlemen, I would have sat introspected even whilst we're in real time, and it's very clear. I am a graduate of Kingston College, but I think the motto up at Old Hope Road's Jamaica College is applicable at this time. Work is burning in the field. And as a political party, it has to be our resolve to embark on that work. We know the 77% of labor rights that the data set is suggesting are ready and raring to go. We have an opportunity to engage our base, just reconnect with them, and separate and apart from the party's base, just Jamaica as a whole, in terms of the observation Peter Espute and even Jermaine underscored just now, in that it's about balancing the books, while at the same time, and perhaps even more importantly, balancing people's lives. And I'm speaking of, reconciling the macroeconomic dynamics with, of course, just delivering for people, water systems, we've had the increase in minimum wage, doing more of those things, and causing people to understand that, all right, everything may not be hunky-dory, at least in terms of my community and roads and whatnot, but everybody cannot be served at the same time. But I'm seeing genuine effort on the part of the wholeness-led administration. It's a trying government, a hard-working government, perhaps not a perfect government, but we can attest that in terms of any objective assessment of the performance of the government, these folks, these set of men and women are the persons better able to take Jamaica forward. They're the party of the future, as opposed to those who are seeking to take Jamaica back essentially to the politics of the 70s. Work is burning in the field. I would just encourage supporters of the JLP, and of course the middle, the sensible middle, as they would say, to how
are you going to energize them to get them to come back? Because you need them.
Roadcliffe. There's no two ways about it. You're gonna have to be out there, and we intend to do so in the weeks and months ahead. The administration is at a juncture where it's gonna be hitting the reset and the refresh button. The Prime Minister is likely, I would imagine, to effect some degree of refreshing to his executive. I wouldn't want to steal the Prime Minister's thunder in that regard, obviously, but the truth is the JLP is at a point of introspection. Work is burning in the field, and we are going to be hitting the pavement, as I've been saying, with all my interventions this evening.
Thank you, Marlon. Deacon Espute, your final thoughts?
The polls show that the JLP is slipping. What it's doing now is what is causing it to slip. Saying that they're happy with what they're doing is not going to change the trend. They've got to look at why they're slipping and make a change. They've got to do something different. And I'm happy to, it's interesting to hear Marlon quote Portia's slogan about balancing the budget and people's lives. That's quite interesting politics. But I think these are interesting times, and we wait to see what happens, who is going to be the new finance minister, and how we're going to cast the next budget, which is the election budget. And we just keep our eyes and ears open and listen to what you all have to say.
Yeah. Helene Davis-White?
Well, certainly the momentum is in favor of the People's National Party. So the People's National Party, I think, will have to, look at what else is needed to keep that momentum. I think the issue of corruption, based on the fact that it has come out so high in the factors that people take into account, and the fact that it was said earlier that the pollsters were not able to actually poll much in that area. It's left to be seen whether the work of the PNP in terms of pushing more on that corruption issue is going to actually help. But I think they have to ensure that they keep that momentum. On the part of the JLP, as I said before, they will just have to begin to look at where it is that they can, bring others on board, because I think historically the two bases have been almost the same, and if the PNP's base is out and the JLP isn't able to get its base out, it will certainly have to look to the undecided in terms of, being able to score a win in the next general election.
All right.
Jermaine Barrett, your final thoughts.
In 15 seconds, debater.
Yes, I'll be quick. Thank you. The evidence from these polls is that we are a society at conflict internally, and we're really divided. Divided on the question of the extent to which we appreciate the macroeconomic and infrastructural improvements and so forth versus the pain, the real palpable pains that Jamaicans are feeling. I think the JLP, for them to really edge the PNP at the polls, is for them to communicate that, yes, we have done well in the macroeconomic sense, but we are empathetic, truly empathetic to your concerns, and you can truly trust us. That message, of course, is a fairly elaborate and specific one to each individual, and I think the JLP's challenge right now is to craft the communication in a way that resonates with people, complex though it is. I think for the PNP, they must continue to press the corruption issues, the crime and violence issues. Yes, there is resonance with those issues, but I think as well what they now need to do is to sharpen the messages with respect to why it is that people should trust them. Not because the JLP is doing an awful job, but simply because they have the better solutions.
Thank you very much, Jermaine. Thank you very much. Janae Stevens-Taylor, based on our schedule, our next poll should be somewhere in February next year.
February of 2025.
But I suspect we'll be calling you before.
Well, Cliff, we will wait for that call. We are ready. You know we're ready.
I suspect we'll be calling you before. Peter Espute said it. We're in for exciting times. Yes, a lot of developments coming, and we'll have to test the political pulse of the country accordingly.
All
Granny
right.
would have said, bye, I put on. And I not now go, I sit now come.
All right.
That's all the time we have. Special thanks to our hardworking producer, Sonia Stewart. Technical operator, the man behind the controls, Andrew Anderson. The technical manager, Jermaine King. Our director, Jamal Tucker. Big up the online team one time. The fantastic team at Blue Dot. Janae Stevens-Taylor, the Chief Consumer Insights Officer. Lauren Peart, the CEO. And our wonderful sponsors at Total Tools. Total Tools, they almost always have it. To our listeners, our contributors, thank you all so much. I'm Ricardo Brooks.
And I'm Cliff Hughes, reminding you, take care of your loved one and look out for your neighbor. Good night.
Good night.
Exciting news! The Design Studio Nationwide 90 FM just got a whole lot bigger. Join us this and every Saturday now from 1 to 3 p.m. for an exclusive show that elevates your home, mind, and soul. Discover the latest interior design trends to create your dream sanctuary. Unlock your true potential with personal growth strategies. Nourish your body and spirit with expert wellness tips. Don't miss out on the inspiration you need to live your best life. Tune in to the Design Studio this and every Saturday from 1 to